It's going to kill stream audio. There we are. Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Why We Geek, the podcast where we take on a piece of geek culture and analyze it and dissect it and be able to showcase why we love it so much. But tonight is going to be a little bit more unusual. Why is it going to be unusual? As I pointed out on Twitter, tonight you're going to be joined by 3 relationship doctors. And therefore, we shall be coming together to discuss the time-old problem that geeks, for some reason, are still having. They had them back in the 80s and 90s, and they're still having them now. I'm still not sure how that works. But basically, we're going to answer a bunch of geeky relationship questions. So let me go ahead and introduce myself. I am your host, Adam Mickelson. I'm sorry, Dr. Drac, aka Adam Mickelson. I hope everybody's had an awesome month so far. And I think that this topic is very appropriate considering that literally next week is Valentine's Day. So everybody can kind of figure out at least a little bit more about themselves. They can move on. But let me go ahead and introduce my panel of fellow doctors and love gurus. Starting, of course, first of all, with Dr. Brinton of BPV Gaming. Doctor.
Hi. It's good to see you.
How are we doing, Doctor?
Filled with the magical sense of love.
In other words, we're having family woes. That's usually what that means. And then, of course, we're also being joined by Dr. Shatery. Doctor.
Hi.
How are we doing? This is actually the first time I've been able to get back in touch with you since, the Pokemon episode. So how have things been going, Shay?
Pretty good. Can't complain whatsoever.
Especially with Valentine's on the way, except now it's like, oh crap, now I got to plan that. I got to work that into my schedule. That's unfortunately like kind of how I approach Valentine's Day these days. It's just like, wow, okay, that creeped up out of nowhere. It's like, hey, hon, what do you want to do for Valentine's Day? I don't care. What do you want to do? Okay, well, we'll sit back and watch a movie then. Okay, that works. That's pretty much my approach to Valentine's Day from here on.
That's always simple. I like that.
So at this point, now that our panel is here, let's go ahead and get into the subject matter. So people might remember, it was not last year. It was in the first year of the Why We Geek podcast. We did an unusual episode around May, which was Geeky Couples. And specifically what we tried to do is bring in both myself as well as my wife, Andrea, and also Brinton was part of that along with his husband, Nathan. So at that point, you got to be able to see, how geeky couples, it's still hard to say, even to this day, how we interact with one another, how we were able to find each other, be able to find love, be able to make the relationship work, all that fun stuff. And you would think that we would be ended there. But then for some reason, around August, when I went to go do a bit of a paternity leave for my second daughter, the Geek News podcast decided to cover a story about increasing geeky divorce rates. And for some reason, my mailbox exploded. Just basically a bunch of people saying, well, you're married. I mean, you figured something out. So I then got a bunch of relationship-based questions, some for myself, some for Brinton, because they also knew that he was married, and also just general relationship questions. So at that point, I decided, okay, let's just tackle these and let's bring in as many motivational people as we possibly can. And also the added bonus is we've all been in relationships. So if people have questions, we can at least answer them to some extent. However, there's one thing I'd like to point out to a few of those listeners that did bring in questions. We're still figuring this crap out just as much as you are. Okay? There's no such thing as dude, I would be the richest man alive if I knew everything about relationships and I made a book about it. All right? Because everybody'd buy it. Everybody has to deal with some kind of relationship stuff that everybody, there'd be kids at 15 that'd be buying that because they know that they're going to have to date eventually. I'd be the richest guy alive. I'm not that guy. I'm still figuring it out just as much as my panelists are, just as much as you guys are. But we can get together and in the spirit of St. Valentine's, we'll go through these questions and see if we can help you guys and gals out. So without further ado, let's get into our first question. Now, we start things off with how passionate are you about things? Well, if you're not passionate about your relationship, I don't know what to tell you. So we're going to go ahead and skip that question, but let's just go ahead. And a lot of this stuff has been reworked because I would get the same question, but a different variation. Okay. So working for this particular demographic, this particular person. So I've tried to blend them as much as possible. And if you didn't necessarily hear your question, that's kind of why, is that I tried to make sure that these worked as best as I could. So without further ado, here's the first question. And that is simply, what do you think in your experience is the most, so I'm actually going to flip things around just a little bit. What do you think in your experience has helped not only your relationships to thrive, but also like kind of, actually, you know what, there's probably a better starting point here, which is simply that let's actually kind of go into relationship experience. I actually think that would probably be the best way to be able to start things off. So before we get into those questions, just kind of give a little bit of an example. I'm the old fart here. I've been married for, as of this year, 9 years. Does that mean that I haven't come across my fair share of bad relationships? Absolutely not. I've had good, I've had bad. Thankfully, my marriage is the best relationship I've had. So at that point, there you go. Brinton, do you want to give kind of a brief summary of like your relationship experience?
Yeah. So I started dating when I was 16 and I got married at 26. So I had dated for a good decade before I finally married my spouse. And I had known my spouse for a good year before we got married. And I will be married, and this November will be 2 years since we've been married.
All right, there you go. So I was actually kind of wondering if it was the 2 year mark.
Yeah, this November is 2 years.
There you go. Shay, what is your experience with relationships?
So for me, my like dating life was always very, very like sporadic. So I went through like long periods of time where I was just the single one of all of my friends. So my friends were always in relationships. I was always the single one. So I was always like the third wheel, the fifth wheel, and sometimes even the seventh wheel. So that was always very awkward.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I've totally done that too.
Yep. That was me. For my dating life, it was always a lot of trying the dating apps per se and see how that went when those became a big thing. Okay. And then ultimately, like for me, I was always that girl that was kind of like, I want to do the like old fashioned dating of meeting someone, just like how you meet someone in person. Dating apps weren't my thing. I was a very scary person. So meeting someone off of online for me didn't work very well. But now I'm currently dating my current boyfriend now for about a year and a half. We've been together. We started out actually as friends. We were actually friends for about 2 years before we actually decided to start dating each other. So that was actually a good thing that worked well for me.
That's kind of the way I'd recommend it too.
Yeah, he actually heard a lot of my relationship woes before we actually got together. So that was interesting because he was my best friend and he still is. So
well, and there you go. Like I'm not meaning to push the M word on you, but I mean, I keep on saying that I married my best friend. So there you go. I'm literally not pushing anything. So there you go. But I could guarantee that we've already heard, Shay has had some relationship woes. Brinton, I'm guessing, has had some relationship woes.
Many.
I've had my share of relationship woes, some of which are just because Shay kind of makes the joke that she was the fifth wheel there. I was that. I was the fifth, the sixth, the seventh wheel amongst my friends. Everybody was in relationships when I wasn't. And then eventually when I got into a relationship, it was so bad. I was the one that was getting made fun of. Because at that point, like they'd been in relationships. Some of them had been married for at least a year at that point. With their high school sweethearts, and all of a sudden I'm just barely getting married, and I was like, I can't remember. I think it was like 25, 26 when I got married. So there you go. That's a lot of dating life, and most of it sucked. Why? Because I sucked at dating. I have no problem admitting that. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the first question that we have, which is, what do you think in your experience helps a relationship to thrive? What helps to make it successful in your experience as you've dated various suitors, so to speak? For me, it's a difficult thing to be able to explain, aside from what's basically helped my relationship to thrive is understanding who I'm dating at that point. Like understanding that, because in my case, my wife is not every other girl. All right. Every other girl wants flowers, jewelry, all that stuff. My wife is happy getting a game every couple of months. All right. That's what she wants. The most, as far as dating and that she's ever wanted, she, like, most of the girls I dated wanted the elaborate dinners and all that stuff. Like, they wanted to be wooed. And in her case, she was fine with just going to go see a movie and grabbing a pizza or a coffee, or not a coffee, but like a pop afterwards kind of thing. She was very, as in my generation, it would be called low maintenance. And so in a lot of cases that worked, because then at that point, personality could kind of take over. And that's what happened there, because, well, I sucked at dating. I literally had to find out from all my friends, just like, what did you do? Oh my gosh. Are you planning on ever getting a girlfriend? You're never going to be able to get girlfriends the way that you do it, which to me, like an average date, just to give people kind of an example, is, movie was actually kind of elaborate for me. Most of the time it was taking whomever I was dating to the mall to go window shop. That's pretty much it. That's all I could ever figure out, because, well, I was already socially awkward enough, trying to get me to figure out like elaborate dinners and elaborate dancing scenes and bar scenes. It wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work. You were going to lose me right off the bat. So really, to me, what's made a good relationship in my experience is being able to understand who you're dating, being able to understand what they like and what they don't want. And then at that point, being able to utilize it in your relationship with them. Shay, what about you? What in your experience has helped a good relationship thrive?
I would say, I know this sounds kind of like cheesy and probably everybody kind of says it, but communication. So the one thing that me and my boyfriend have both realized that we're very good at with each other is talking to each other when especially something's bothering us and something is wrong. So even if we've had like a little bit of an argument, we will have our like few hours or like a day where we're just like, we can't deal with it right now. Yeah. But then once we talk to each other, we're able to talk in a level-headedness where we're both understanding each other, what actually happened, where the other person was coming from. Mm-hmm. So that has definitely helped our relationship thrive, and also just trusting the other person a lot of times. So if we're like not with each other, I don't feel the need to have to like ask him where he's going all the time, and he doesn't have to feel the same way with me if I'm like, hey, I'm going out with my friends for a little bit. Yep. He's not having to like blow up my phone all the time and be like, oh, like, where are you, or when are you going to be coming home? So those are the two things for us helped our relationship thrive, and has helped our relationship thrive. The one last thing is one thing that me and my boyfriend actually didn't know about each other until we started talking, was that there's a book called The 5 Love Languages, and both of us have read it, but we read it at different times. So we both knew what the other person's love language was and how to express it so that the other person understood that they were appreciated and that we loved each other. So that also kind of helped us. Even if you don't, we
got that on our bookshelf too, actually.
Yeah. So even if you don't read it with your significant other or whomever you're with, you can even just read it by yourself so that you learn what your own love language is. And sometimes you even learn like what your family members' love languages are. So
yeah. For my wife, it worked perfectly, because like during our relationship, she was still trying to, this is the weird part, is like, I've had relationship experience with a lot of dating. I'm not even kidding when I say this. If my wife, I think she's even attested on the channel, she dated me and then that was it. All right. She didn't, like, she was way too focused into school and being able to achieve her goals. The dating really wasn't something she was worrying about. And when she was actually wanting to date, she kind of had made her decision because she had dated me for a while. She was like, I've made my decision. This is who I want to be able to go and date. And so at that point, she went off and read the 5 love languages and kind of figured herself out. I've read it, and I'm one of those rare cases where it's like, okay, I can't narrow down my language. I cannot narrow down like who I am, because I swear like every 5 to 10 years that changes. And so at that point, it's like she was able to get something from it. I get a little bit, but it's like, if you were to ask me right here and now how that has worked for me, I would literally tell you, I don't know. I'm flying by the seat of my pants every time. So that's just the way it goes. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually a really great book that people need to look into if they're looking for something to help out. Brinton, what is in your experience a way to be able to help a relationship to thrive?
So I'm going to very much sound like a broken record, but for me, trust and communication also has been a big thriving point.
It's almost like it's a thing.
I know, right? I feel like we're going to have a very strong reoccurring theme here.
Yeah.
I think that Shay nailed that information perfectly. So I was thinking of another thing that really helped us, and that is supporting. One thing that really helped Nathan and I is that we support each other in our personal endeavors and our personal goals. We have each other's backs. We know, we know roughly what is in our best interests and what's really going to help us in our personal lives. And that comes obviously from trusting your partner and communicating with your partner. But one of the biggest, like I've said this several times, I call Nathan my technical engineer for my channel, because he literally had helped me evolve the quality of my videos and my audio so significantly, because he knew, oh, how about we get this product? How about we spend a little extra money into this? He knows that I'm never going to make money off of YouTube. He knows that it's very much a hobby. He knows I'm not going to one day come home and be like, I quit my job.
Did, then that would be amazing. But
yeah, but he knows I'm not just going to quit my my day job to start trying to make money off of YouTube.
No.
But he supports me in this hobby. He supports me in doing something that he knows that I enjoy, and I do the same for him as well. And I always look out for his best interests. I always make sure that he's taken care of. I always make sure that his needs are met just as much as he makes sure that mine are met. And I think that's really helped us thrive, because it shows that we do care for one another beyond just beyond all the other little, I don't know, I call them frivolous things. I mean, I don't really think of myself as a romantic person. I like to think of my husband is definitely the romantic in our relationship.
I think we actually even figured this out when we were doing Devil May Cry, that in some weird way, I was more of a romantic than you were. Does that sound familiar?
I think I just know for a fact I'm not a super romantic person, and that's something that I try to be better at, because I mean, there are times that Nathan is left for work, because he always leaves to work before I do, and I'm generally still asleep or just getting up, and he'll go walk out to my car and leave a note in there for me to find. And it's not like he hides it, so I have to go through this scavenger hunt. It's very much taped to the steering wheel. I open the door, bam, I love you, have a great day. And I love that, because it's not a text message. I mean, if you sent it as a text message, still, I love it, but it's not a text message. And he goes beyond the millennial / Generation X-esque ways that people now show romance. And he is very much old school, and he is very much this is how I'm going to express my love for you, because you are someone that I just don't want to live the rest of my life without. And I try my best to show that to him as well, considering I'm not that romantic. So I try to show it in different ways, in my own little quirky Brinton ways.
See, and Andrea's kind of you at that point. Like she finds ways in her own sense to be able to go and be romantic. Now, Nathan has officially made me look bad because I'm the guy who does the text messages, but that's only because I know how busy my wife's schedule is when she's at work. And so at that point, I know that eventually she'll get to it. And frankly, if I was going to do the whole car thing like he does, I mean, I would have woken her up because she literally keeps her car keys like right next to her ear at the bed. Like Andrea is really cool in that regard.
The only reason why that works is because we have 2 sets of car keys in the event, like if I leave my keys in his car, which I do all the time. So that way, at least I can go grab my spare car key with the house key. So that way I can still leave and lock the door.
Yeah. And we don't have that. And in fact, one of the things that's kind of funny about Andrea is like, since she has to get up so early for her shifts, because, in case people don't realize, my wife's an RN. So at that point, she's got to work really early and she's got to go for like a 12-hour, even in some cases, a 16-hour shift before she can come home to her kids. And so at that point, like, she literally just tries to save every second of time so that she could sleep in at least a little bit before she's got to get up at 5 a.m. to go to work. So she literally just puts everything like right there in front of her. She goes and changes in the bathroom. And then all of a sudden she's got her coat right there. Her car keys are right there. The Mountain Dew that she's going to be taking with her is right there. So she could just kind of sit there and wake up a little bit and then head out the door. That's why I'm saying it wouldn't work for me because she's got the keys like right next to her ear. And so at that point I'm waking her up anyway. And then she's mad at me. That's just the way it goes. But hey, like the text message, at least in our relationship, works because then at that point she can get it when she can.
And don't get me wrong to anybody who's listening. Like if that's how you show, like if that works for you in your relationship, like Drac has just obviously, given an example of, then by all means, like don't go out of your way to like leave a note if your partner's going to get pissed off at you for doing that. Just like, send a text message.
But I'm glad that you guys kind of brought up. So Shay brought up communication and trust. All right. Because that's going to be, you guys are bringing up that these are going to be broken records. There's a reason that they are. And I actually am going to say it's going to be a triad. So there's trust and communication. Brinton brought up being able to basically understand how to show affection for one another and the course of your own relationship. For me, it's always been empathy. Like being able to understand my other and be able to put my cards on the table so that then I can show affection in that way. And so a lot of that is going to come kind of as a broken record throughout tonight. And it's going to make sense that way. Trust me, it's going to work out. So moving on into the next question, we have to ask the opposite. What in our experience is most likely the cause of relationships failing? All right. And one thing I'm going to point out, just from all of the friends that I've since known have been divorced at least once, as like literally they got married to their high school sweethearts and then unfortunately realized that they weren't the one, or they had a really bad relationship and weren't really willing to acknowledge that it was a bad relationship and then got divorced. But one thing that I've noticed for them that didn't happen in the one for me that worked is, for some reason, and maybe it's just my generation, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it's such a mad dash to get to the point in the relationship where physical intimacy is a thing. And so at that point, like a lot of my friends that have gone on the dating scene, like they've kind of rushed to things like marriage so that they can say that they've taken the relationship to the full next level and it's physical intimacy that does it. And they fail to realize, and a lot of relationships fail to realize, that there's a whole other component you're not putting into that mix, which is not only like physical intimacy is a great thing, but emotional intimacy is what makes the relationship long lasting. Because it's great and all to get buck naked and all that fun stuff. Okay. And like, I've got 2 kids. I can prove it's fun. But at this point, the other thing that makes a relationship worthwhile is literally laying yourself bare in front of your other, putting all of your cards on the table and showing who you truly are. And in a lot of relationships, people are scared to do that. because there's, people are worried that that one secret that is in their lives, back when they were an idiot in high school, is going to be the one thing that ends that relationship. And frankly, that's what strengthens it, because if you lay your cards on the table, then at that point, the relationship only gets stronger from there. A lot of people think that the physical intimacy is what does it. And in my experience, that's not the case. That's not what strengthens them. It's when you go to that emotional intimacy that really is what sets and strengthens that relationship. So that's kind of one of the things that I've noticed. Brinson, what about you?
So pretty much the opposite. What's most likely going to cause a relationship to fail? Well, so before Nathan, I had only really seriously dated two people. One was a girl, and then the other was a guy, and that was after I had come out. What didn't work with the girl and I it wasn't the fact that she was a girl. It was the fact that we were not.
It's not you, it's me.
No, some people laugh because they're like, oh, it's because she was female. I'm like, no, it had nothing to do with her parts. I just didn't really like her as a person. Over time, I realized that she wasn't the one, because I just didn't really like her as a person. I don't know, the word that comes to my mind is that she was kind of she was disgusting, and not disgusting in the sense of hygiene, or she didn't take care of herself. She definitely took care of herself. She just her soul was just kind of disgusting. She just kind of let people she was just kind of like this leaf that gets tossed to and fro by the wind, and the wind were people like her older sister, who pretty much made all of her choices for her, her friends who influenced most of her choices. Pretty much she couldn't make a choice for her own damn self, which was so annoying. And she let her older sister make her believe that I wasn't enough of a man to date. I wasn't there was just that toxic masculinity. I wasn't this guy who was this big, muscly, brawny football star who mistreated women and was a pervert and all this stuff, which I wasn't raised to be like that. And I know for a fact that this woman didn't have a father, and I know for a fact that there's no way that their mother taught them or her older brothers that is how women should ever be treated. So after a while, I was just I don't want to be a part of this. And then and I'm gay. For the second, and this, and then for the second guy, man, that one definitely is complicated, but that one just kind of boils back down to the lack of communication. A year after we had broken up, I had come to realize through the grapevine, when I started digging a little bit more, is that he was my boyfriend, but I was not his. So I pretty much was in a half relationship with somebody who was out and about, pretty much living all of his sexual desires. And here I am thinking that I found somebody who truly cared about me. And it just ended up being that there just was no communication between us. There was no spark between us. And he ended up doing something to me that broke me more than I wish it did. And it and changed me in a way that I wish never changed me. Because the person I was when I was with him and the person I am now are two entirely different people. And I missed the person I was before he hurt me, because it was not that I don't like myself now, but there were things about me then that I wish I still had today. But I've been able to acquire a new sense of self during that year, and then I met my husband. So again, it just kind of falls back onto what we were saying previously. things that made my relationships fail is the fact that there was just no communication, even with like all the people who ended up ghosting me and people that I had tried meeting online. It was just like,
that's one of the things that I actually kind of find interesting, is that you literally just pointed out your opposite, which was that, you know, you wanted trusted community. Well, technically it's Shay's, because Shay brought it up first, but like you brought up trusted communication, and what didn't work in these relationships? Lack of trust, lack of communication.
I mean, I get that's super hard. Especially in these days, I totally 100% think that it's because of technology. We're all stuck behind screens, and it kind of creates, and I mean, everybody has been on the internet long enough that they've kind of discovered the fact that they can create this persona of someone who isn't truly real, and they can hide behind that screen and hide behind that fake reality. And then when it comes to having to be, you know, bare and real and not that person you're trying to be on the internet, that's where it gets scary. And a lot of people don't want to face their true reality. They just want to face the internet reality. So I get that's difficult, and I get that's hard. But if you're the type of person who is listening right now and sitting here, like sitting or listening wherever you're listening to this to, and you're wondering like, man, I really, really, really want like to have a partner, and I really want this to work. Like, you gotta be yourself. And yeah, the internet's not gonna like that, but you also gotta put on a little bit of like, you gotta start growing.
I could attest to that yesterday. People didn't like me being myself. So
I mean, you gotta put on some thick skin, and you just gotta raise a middle finger to the internet and be like, this is me, take me or leave me. If you don't like me, then just leave, because I'm not leaving.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best way to be able to go about it. Shay, what about you? What have you been able to notice in your experience that makes relationships fail?
I think it's kind of very similar to what Brenton said. I believe also what you said. To me, it's like not being true to who you are. For me, like, I always grew up hearing, at least from like within my community and just among like women in general, you were always told or heard of like, if you won't do something, another woman will. So a lot of times it made it where for me, it was like, I never wanted to rock the boat of whomever I was dating. So like, if he was like, oh, let's do this, but I didn't really want to do it, I never wanted to say I didn't want to. It was like, oh, okay, like, sure. Because I didn't want it to be like, I want to be as easygoing as possible with whomever I was dating. So like, I never would really voice my opinion. And then I started to realize with my relationship that I'm in now, that my boyfriend actually was like, no, I want to hear your opinion. Like, if you don't want to do something, like, please let me know you don't want to do it. Like, it's perfectly okay. And so like, for me, I was able to explain to him what's happened previously, and able to like break down those walls, those barriers, so that I'm able to now say like, I'm not for sure if I really want to do that, because then it's like, we're going to come to a compromise and figure out what it is that we both want to do. So that's one thing that I've learned, that if you're not true to who you are, like your relationship is going to fail, and you can't be afraid to show the other person exactly who you are. And I know it's hard now because, you know, with the internet and everything, you see like stuff on Instagram, on Facebook. So a lot of times you'll look at other girls or anybody who's in a relationship, and you'll try and be like, well, what are they doing that got them somebody? And I should do that so that I can get somebody. But you have to realize like, what someone else does is probably or may not work for you, because you have a different personality. Everyone has different personality. So
the other thing that you're bringing up that I think is also going to kind of come up a little bit more in this podcast too, is lack of assertion. All right. A lot of us, myself included, there were a lot of relationships where I basically was the doormat. Like I did everything that the girl wanted me. Like I tried to be everything the girl wanted me to be. And those were the relationships that didn't work, that absolutely, like, I ended up kind of loathing them, and also kind of hating myself in the process, because it wasn't like I wasn't at that time, I wasn't treating myself the best way. And so at that point, it wasn't necessarily that they were being mean to me. It was that I was the problem, that I was the fault. And that happens a lot in relationships. A lot of people kind of discount that. You have to, when you're not asserting yourself, like, that can create problems in a relationship too.
Yeah, you have to understand like what your actual value is. And I think that's something that a lot of people are kind of like with relationships, it's never just black and white. Either you're with somebody or you're not. Now it's the whole thing of like, oh, we'll be friends with benefits, or like, oh, I'm dating around, or everything else. So you never have a clear cut of like whether or not you're with somebody. So it does go back to communication, but also has to go back to if that person's not giving you a relationship that you want, then don't stick around because you think it'll be okay. Like I've been in a situation where I really liked somebody and I thought we were going to end up having a relationship with them, and it didn't turn out that way. And then he ended up basically kind of breaking my heart. And then he got together with the next girl and actually started dating her pretty seriously. So it left me like, oh, well, I should have known, like, if it wasn't going to be like that, I should have been stopped talking to you. And why did I waste, over 6 months talking to you the way we were and hanging out with you when nothing ever came of it? But it was kind of like, oh, I did that to myself because I should have left when I saw that you weren't gonna but that I should have left when I realized that we weren't going to be in a relationship that I wanted. And it was also only just what you wanted and what was convenient for you. So just recognizing your own value. And if someone's like, oh, I don't want to be in a relationship right now, don't just be like, oh, okay, well, that's okay. We can still just kind of hang out. Just be like, oh, you're not going to be in a relationship with me? Okay, well, then let me find someone who will. A lot of people don't realize this. And I actually see this happen a lot with a lot of my geeky friends too, is that the acknowledgement that a relationship, in fact, is not a one-way street. It is a two-way street. And it's very hard to be able to acknowledge that. For crying out loud, like this, believe it or not, was the biggest problem that I had in my first year of marriage. All right. Like a lot of people say that your first year of marriage is the hardest. And in this case, it was for me. But in my weird way, it wasn't because like I was putting myself ahead of my wife. It was at that point, I had not, first of all, I had not lived with a girl in many years. Like my sister had moved out of the house years before that point. And so I was not ready for that. And then on top of that, where I was living at that point is I was taking care of my dad because my dad had a bunch of medical issues. And so at that point, he was kind of in one half of the house and I was at the other half. So at that point, you could say it was more like an apartment relationship. I was used to living by myself. And so at that point, throwing somebody else into the mix, not only that, but also you're married to them, threw me off for a majority of that year. Because it would, like, for me, one of the things that would get me is like, I would be upfront about, this is where I'm going and everything like that. And then when crap would happen where my wife would get stuck in traffic, I didn't know how to react to that. It was the weirdest thing. Like, should I be mad at that? Should I not care? Eventually I got to the point where like, don't care. But it's like, I'm married now. Should I have to care about this? Is she off canoodling with somebody else? No. Calm down. That's basically what happened there. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of similarities here. So hopefully now that we're getting into the advice, this is kind of a lot of people are going to see where we're going with it. So the next question is kind of a two-parter. There's going to be a lot of two-parters here. How would you recommend a single geek search for a relationship? This is complicated, as when I was dating, there was go out and socialize. All right. At that point, could I say that online dating had been a thing at that point? I don't think so, because the only example that I had was like my older brother found his wife via online dating, and it wasn't like a well-constructed site. It wasn't like eHarmony, for crying out loud, so that's kind of what I know, is just go out and socialize, like actually go out and put yourself out there. I'm gonna kind of open it up to you guys, because this is kind of my lack of experience. What would you recommend for somebody who wants to start dating, how to get started, roughly? Brenton, how would you get started, or how would you recommend somebody?
Oh my gosh. I'm like sitting here thinking to myself, what the fuck would I do? Well,
because now there's tons of ways to be able to find possible relationships. I mean, social media plays a part into that. The other thing that I never experienced, but a lot of my friends did, was, I think it's called speed dating, where
Oh,
it's just
yeah,
like everybody gathers up and then like all the guys are at the outer ring of a restaurant and then the girls just like they have 10 minutes to meet with people. I never experienced that.
I've done that once. It was interesting.
I don't know how I'd make that work. That I'd get whiplash.
I wanted to do it, but I never did. I was interested. I guess for me, I'd say I tried so many things when it came to dating. Like I did the whole socializing thing, but it's hard when like your friends, for them socializing is like going to the club. And when you're someone like, for me, I know I'm not a club type of person. I'm kind of a homebody. So it's like the only way I was going to meet someone socializing was if I ever was just going out to the mall or if they somehow got inside of my house, because that was the only way I was probably going to meet them. So for me, I would say try socializing. I know it can be difficult, especially if you're someone who's an introvert. It can be very hard to socialize with people, especially if you're out in a crowd. Also, I tried online dating, but for me, it was very, very difficult because I'm a scary person. So I get scared very easily. So for me, meeting someone off of online that I don't know anything about terrified me. And one of my friends is very, very good at it. She's able to get dates and go out on dates with guys like no problem. For me, it's like I have no idea whether you're like a mass murderer or however. I have no idea. So I was always very afraid. Yes. I even did the whole having your parents set you up with people that they know. I did that.
See, I never had that, but I knew people that did.
That was very interesting because it's kind of like you end up kind of meeting this person. You're kind of like, I don't even know how to start a conversation with you. Yeah. Like half the time it's like, oh, I'll give you their phone number. You can text them. And then you're like, okay, maybe I'll text them. But in your reality, you're like, I don't even know how to start out this conversation because you have no idea who I am.
Yes.
I've had that. For me, I guess what worked with finally finding someone was like, not thinking about it anymore. And I guess that's something that everyone always says. They're like, you'll find someone when you least expect it. And for me, that's exactly what happened. I found someone I least expected it. But if you're someone that's going to be actively looking, think about where your comfort level is. If you're not comfortable with doing online dating, then don't do it because you won't actually meet anybody off of there. I know they have sites like Tinder, which my friend always uses, Plenty of Fish. There's so many out there now. Like
there's like a bunch of local services here too that like are trying to get people within 5 miles of each other to date. And that's all well and good, but you still kind of have the same problem. You don't necessarily know who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I kind of want to touch on something here really quick that Shay just said, and that is, you'll find that person when you least expect it. And I don't mean it the way that Hollywood portrays when you least expect it. I mean, when you truly least expect it. How I met my husband, I was working a desk job. I was working a client case, finished it. And then I got a notification from a dating app I was using that said, Nate messaged you. And I was just like, who is this? Because at that point I had given up.
It's just like, I don't know why I need to do this.
Yeah. I truly had given up, by that point, just 100% given up. So I was like, okay, who is this? So I pull it up. And I even still remember the picture that Nathan used. It was kind of like this up close selfie where only like half his face was exposed. And I could tell he had a beard, and that just makes me weak to the knees. So I was like, okay, like from what I see, he's cute. So I went ahead and like started.
Not only him. That, but since Shay has never seen Nathan, in fact, it's funny. You actually see him behind Brenton.
Oh yeah.
So it's not just beard. It is like he rivals one of my other friends in lumberjack beard status. So at that point, like if there were ever truly to be a beard war on Twitter, it would be between those two.
I actually have like try to convince Nathan to grow it out longer, but he always follows up with him saying, like, he always follows it with saying, I could just shave it off. And I'm like, how about we just keep it the way it is then.
Yeah. I kind of wondered.
No, he will not let me have this one, and I don't want him to shave his face. So I just let him do what he wants with it.
See, maybe it's for the best, because then I would look Nathan in the eye and go, okay, give me a Gandalf. I really need you to start making wizardly quotes, just because I need to hear you say, a wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, after just like messaging back and forth, and most people who are probably listening now know how I met my husband, that story. But for Shay, who doesn't know, I initially blew him off. Like he asked me, hey, let's do something. But I like blew him off and made a really, really bad, lame excuse that, well, it was semi-lame. Like it was, anyway, I blew him off, and I still feel really bad about that 3 years later. And so I knew for a fact that I had completely ruined it. I was like, I like this guy. I'm pretty sure he likes me. There is strong chemistry between us. And I just blew it up to smithereens. So, good job, Brenton. Let's, carry on with our life. The next day he sends me a message, and I don't think I've ever grabbed my phone faster than I ever have in my entire life. And the message said, I will pick you up at this time. We're going to go to this restaurant and see this movie on this day. The end. He didn't even ask if it was okay with me. He didn't even ask if I had other plans. It was just, this is what we're doing. Give me your address. And I was just like, oh my gosh, here it is.
I can attest this. I've seen this in action. This is how it works. And yet it works. I can't even explain. If I were to do that to Andrea right here, and there's no way it would work.
Yeah,
no way whatsoever.
And the funny thing is, I don't know how it works, because that's totally not me, but with us, it just works. And yeah. So 1 weekend later, we just started dating, and like I will be with him for like 3 years this June. But literally, it's when you least expect it. That is how it worked for me.
Yeah, that's how it worked for me too. Pretty much.
So pretty much, to properly answer the question, you just gotta put yourself out there, and it's going to be really scary. It's going to be really hard. If you're a single geek, I would say go participate in geek culture. Mm-hmm. Like, don't stop doing what you love just because you're trying to find somebody to date. Bring somebody along, and go to like Comic-Con in Salt Lake City has a bunch of activities for single people who are like there are geek speed dating. Like I saw it at Comic-Con when I went. I didn't participate because it was shortly after I would say maybe a month and a half. No, actually it was a month. It was a month after I had broken up with my ex, and I was like, I'm not going to do it.
Well, do you remember like when we went to, it wasn't last time when we went to Bonsai, but the time before that, they actually had like single geeks get-togethers and just like socialize with one another. That was, to me, that was weird, just because I didn't have that in growing up for me. So it's just like, wow, that would be amazing, considering, that I mean, I hate to go with the stereotypes here, but geeks are socially awkward. And so at that point, being able to kind of meet on equal terms, that works.
It's not like connections.
So, I mean, like, that's honestly, that is, that was, I guess that's what I would recommend. Just continue doing what you love. And if you're somebody who, what you love to do is sitting behind a screen, and like, if you're a gamer geek, or you're a YouTube geek, or, you're a homebody, is essentially where you can do all your geekery at home, and you don't necessarily have to go out, except twice a year here in Salt Lake for Fan X.
Yeah.
But even, I don't know.
Well, even to some extent, like even our local game stores, I actually found out they hold like social get-togethers. So at that point, like, you could probably find a place near your neighborhood that is doing something. To be able to get people, because here's the thing, it works both ways. It gets you social, but it also gets people into their store, so that maybe through some possibility they'll buy something.
And even like check out different game stores and see what kind of social nights they're having. Like Like I know for like, I mean, there's always going to be that one day of the week where somebody, you know, they're having like their Pokemon trading card game night or the Magic night or the Yu-Gi-Oh night or enter this card game night. Go learn, you know, go learn to do something new. I love trading card games. I haven't, like the last time I played one was when I was on my mission, which was forever and a half ago. And I haven't played a trading card game since. But
I was just going to say, don't go on Yu-Gi-Oh night. You'll be forced to tell your entire life story while drawing a card.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, another part of meeting my husband, I should probably also mention, because I forget this part of the story as well, is that I actually more or less told him my entire life story. And the whole
while
time,
drawing a card.
while drawing a card. But the whole time in the back of my head, I was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Please stop. You're not stopping. Oh my gosh, this is going to end. I'm melting. Please melt. You're not melting. Why? Stop. Shut up. Like, just. And still, he asked me to be his boyfriend, which I think I also needed, because everything up until then was me initiating everything, me asking, me trying to make them interested. Yeah. And it was flattering that somebody else was doing it for a change. But the chemistry was there. The spark was there. I genuinely wanted to be with this person. And it worked.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I guess that's what I would recommend. I guess that would be my advice for just trying to you got to put yourself out there. It's going to be really hard. And for those introvert types, just like grab a friend who you trust and you know who's going to support you, and just go to something social that's geekery related. Definitely don't try to go to like a sports bar or go clubbing, because if that's not you, then it's not going to work.
Find something that works for both of you. Like if you're both anime fans, go find an anime meetup. Like, again, Bonsai did that where and on top of that, they had basically the perfect kind of date night because they were playing anime throughout the convention. So like you could just come in and watch whatever movie.
Oh yeah, easily. Like if they're having one of those like single meetups at Anime Bonsai, like this October or November when it is, like go meet someone, suggest, hey, they're going to be playing these episodes of this anime that I am semi-interested in. Do you want to go see if it's any good? Yeah, sure. Go sit in the back and make fun of it if it's bad.
Exactly. Like just have fun with it.
Easy. Like, just have fun. Dating doesn't have to be this like super complicated mess. Just like go have fun, lose your inhibition a little bit, but not entirely, and like just have fun. If you take
what you're basically saying is break the ice. So yeah.
I know this sound like, I know I'm making it sound like, oh, I'm so good at this, but even in my own marriage, like flirting has kind of come down to, this piece of bread is so delicious. Like, do you like this piece of bread, Nathan? I don't think I've ever said that. That was like the worst possible flirt I could ever think of. But that's literally how it goes. I just look at him and I'm like, hey, like kind of.
Well, awkwardly. I mean, could you say that you have it worse than me just coming up with random quotes while me and Andrea play games together? I mean, for crying out loud, that's how, hey, Sora, unzip your pants. Came up.
Oh my gosh.
Because we make fun of the bromance that Riku and Sora have. And so at that point, like we've just seen enough images is like, hey Sora, why don't you come here and unzip my pants? And it's stuck, and Andrea loves it. And whenever I come up with stuff like that, that's our flirting. That's what happens there. So this is actually a great point to do the pairing point of that. Is these are ways for you to be able to go out and look for relationships. But before you do that, is there any advice that any of us would give to consider, or any advice that we would give that person to consider before they start looking? All right. And for me, the only advice that I would give to anybody is, and this is going to sound harsh, but I can't think of a better way to be able to say it, is understand the commitment yes, I used the C word, people. I used it, but understand the commitment you're walking into. Relationships are commitments in and of themselves, even at the earliest stages. So at that point, my advice to you would be is, considering what you're wanting to walk into, you kind of need to take a moment and do kind of a personal inventory. Are you up for doing a relationship right now? Like, is your life too busy? Is it too cumbersome? Have you kind of worked out the things that you feel are going to give you problems in a relationship? And I'm not saying the socially awkward stuff, because let's just be honest, first dates are always going to be socially awkward as far as I am concerned. That's the way they go. That's why they're called first dates. But at that point, like, give yourself a thorough personal inventory. Is this something that you want to walk into? And are you willing to be able to give of yourself, not just have given to you? Okay. Because again, a relationship cannot be one-sided. And so it's a harsh criticism to be able to make, but it's definitely something that I see a lot of people not doing. And therefore, when they walk into a relationship, they kind of walk in and go, how come this isn't 100% about me? Because it isn't supposed to be about you. It's supposed to be about you in this aspect, but then there's also the other part of that. Relationships are a two-way street, and you have to treat them that way. So is there any advice that you guys would give before people start looking to date?
I think I really like what you said. I think it's something that I even myself would say. You got to take personal inventory. You got to find where you are at your point in your life, and you need to figure out, is this something that's right for me right now? And if the answer is no, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up over that, because you do have to take time for yourself, and you do need to find time to, you just need to be single sometimes. I have decided that I no longer wanted to be single, hence why I'm married. But if you just got off of being in a relationship, and the first thing you ask yourself is, do I want to be in another one? And the answer is no. Allow yourself to be single. Be okay with it. Have fun. Go do things that make you happy. Go on that road trip. Go get that massage. Go buy that really expensive thing you don't need, but you need it for some reason anyway, because you've justified it in your head enough times. So you go and hit buy anyway. I've never done that. But
sorry, you lost me at massage. I'm like, oh, massage sounds great right about now.
Yeah, I also need a massage really, really bad. Yes. But it's like, it's okay to be single. I hate how our society and our media make being single seem like you're this plague upon society. Like, how dare you be single? Like, you need to be in bed with someone every night. You need to be making babies. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing that. Like, how fucking dare you? It's like, no, like, thank you. That's awesome.
Basically, it's like you have to be adding to your conquest list, and that it's not how that works. No, in all honesty.
No, it's not. So you just like take some time, like take time for yourself. Make sure that you're at a point in your life where when you look in the mirror and you say, do I want to be in a relationship right now? You can proudly and confidently say yes. Yeah. If it's still a hard, solid no, then take a little bit more time for yourself. You're in no rush. Life is short, but at the same time, you don't need to get out of high school and begin and start getting married. It's completely unnecessary.
Yeah. And really quick before we get to Shay, I just want to address something really quick that one of our listeners is actually addressing with me on it. I am not saying, like, I know I just got the whole emotionally intimate kind of thing set up. I'm not saying that you have to have that done by first date. Okay. Make an assessment on whether or not you want to be able to put all your cards on the table with that person. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying with the personal inventory is just make sure that you're ready for the commitment and the path that is going to take your life down. So at that point, that's really what I'm aiming at. Shay, what advice would you give for people who are looking to start but haven't yet?
Be comfortable being by yourself, bottom line. Yes. Because if you're not happy being by yourself, or you don't know what to do when you're by yourself, then what are you going to do when you have someone else with you? You can't just look at each other and be like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? be comfortable being by yourself and doing things by yourself, doing things alone, going to the movies by yourself. I've done that a few times. I know when the X-Men Apocalypse came out, I was literally, when I lived with my roommate, I was like, oh, that came out today? Oh, I want to go see it. I bought a movie ticket for myself to go see it.
Oh
I
my
was
gosh,
like, I don't
I've
have anyone
totally
else to
done
go
that
with.
too.
Yeah, and before I used to think that was the most loneliest thing in the world before I actually did it by myself. And I was like, this is actually kind of cool to do this by myself because like I didn't have to find another seat for nobody. It was just me. I could sit wherever I want because I didn't have to try to find 2 seats in with other people. I was I'm happy I can do this by myself.
And for me, like when I had done that, it made me realize, oh my gosh, I'm an adult. I can do things by myself. I can do things that are fun. I don't need somebody. Yeah. Like it was so, like it felt so good and I loved it. For me, it was Deadpool. I think that was the best movie that for me to come to terms with that. But I even remember people telling me, you go do things by yourself? That must be so awkward. And it's like, I'm comfortable with who I am that I can do it. And it allows me to meet people.
Yeah, I had someone do that to me too. I actually, when I went and saw X-Men Apocalypse, leaving the movie theater, I ran into one of my coworkers and her boyfriend. And she was like, oh, who are you with? And I was like, oh, I'm here by myself. And she was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, like I'm here by myself. Is that a problem? Like, I didn't say that to her, but in my head, I'm like, I don't think this is a big issue. But I was also like, I'm glad I ran into y'all so y'all can walk with me to my car because it's dark outside. So I'm glad I ran into y'all.
Yeah.
But it was mostly also like, just like, was like Brent mentioned, have fun being single and being by yourself, because one of the best things that was kind of cool about being single, not that I don't like being with my boyfriend because I do, when it came to going places, I didn't have to worry about anybody else. It was just me. Like it was just like if my friend was like, hey, let's all take a road trip, let's go to the movie, let's go to like Disneyland or something, it was like, oh, okay, I want to go, that's fine. I have to like talk to nobody else and be like, hey, so I'm doing this, letting you know before I leave. Does everything work with our schedule? Are we able to do this? It was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna do it by myself. Perfect. Let's go. I'm down for it. So I didn't have to worry about anybody else, and that was fun and actually cool to do. There were several times my friend invited me along Disneyland with her and her boyfriend. Yeah, it sucked being a third wheel in Disneyland with every other couple and family there. But it was kind of cool to just be like, hey, I can just go and do this, while my other friends were in relationships and were like, we can't really do that. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm sorry, but I'm about to head out.
At that point, I would tell you, try being a movie theater usher on Valentine's Day. And you're closing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The stories I could tell you, but I don't even want to relive them. All right. But no, there's actually a lot of really great advice there, because the bottom line is that if you can't go out and do things on your own, how on earth is a date going to work? Because how are you going to be able to be yourself if you can't even be yourself around yourself, kind of thing? So with that, let's go ahead and move on into the next question. So the next one is, if this one came up a lot, and I don't know why geeks think this is a thing, but let's go ahead and get into it. If we're in a relationship, doesn't that mean that we have to do everything together?
No.
You'll
get tired of each other.
No, 1,000 times no. Here's the thing, is that it's great to be in a relationship, but there are two individuals there. And so at that point, and especially if they're geeks, you have two different sets of fandoms that maybe intersect here and there, but not everywhere. I mean, for crying out, like I wasn't the biggest Pokemon fan when my wife kind of brought me into it, and it's something that we can share now. But I definitely have things that she's not interested in. I like watching Star Trek. She couldn't give a crap about Star Trek. She's like, oh, I know what that is, but I don't need to watch it. And so at that point, what you're basically saying, I mean, for crying out loud, what you're basically saying is you do everything together. Ew.
Yeah, I guess we are saying that.
Yeah. No, don't. That's the weirdest misconception, is like that when you're in a relationship, you have to do everything together. No, you don't. You can go off and do your own thing.
Yeah, I will say that if your relationship is new, you will see a lot of couples doing everything together. That's like it's like the honeymoon stage. Yes, you do everything together when you're first together because you're hanging out, you're wanting to do that. That's perfectly fine, but also like you don't have to do everything together. You don't want people to start referring to you as in like plural, like meaning you isn't just you by yourself, it's you as in you and whoever you're with, because then you know it's really bad because they're like, oh yeah, I know if I invite such and such along, they're gonna bring such and such with them.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. The worst thing also about if you feel that you have to spend every single waking moment with whomever you're with is if your boys or your girls want to invite you out and you invite your significant other along, your friends will hate you because they will be like, we just wanted to talk to you. We wanted to discuss certain stuff, but now we can't because you brought along such and such or brought along whoever you're with.
Exactly.
I have been in that situation, but it wasn't more so like, for me, it was like my friend invited me to our house. Like, we're going to hang out, have a girls' night, do everything else. I'm like, oh, cool. That's fine. I'll be right over. I get there and slowly, one by one, all their boyfriends show up. And I'm like, I'm ready to go home because now I'm the seventh wheel. This isn't fun anymore.
This isn't fun anymore. Yeah,
exactly.
The other thing you also kind of bring up that's also a good point is I don't care who you are. In any relationship, there's always going to be that one friend of your significant other that doesn't like you, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way that the relationship, like as much as your significant other wants you two to get along, it's probably just never going to happen. And so at that point, that's when the girls' night out and the guys' night out work, is that you can have that quality time and you don't have to worry about the bickering. I don't know about you guys. I've had that problem where a lot of Andrea's girlfriends, unfortunately, had to deal with me as a kid. And therefore we don't get along very well. Like we're at that point where it's just like, hello, miss, I'm civil and I have nothing really to say to you. And that's kind of how that goes. We have friends that we can both hang out with together, but then there are the friends that she wants to be able to catch up with for like from nursing school days or from old neighborhood days that unfortunately they dealt with me and they don't like me. And in some cases, one of the reasons that they don't like me is because, well, I said Andrea was more attractive than they were. I'm not going to get into that. I kind of walked myself into that. It was high school drama. Well, the problem was that the I'm not going to name names, but the friend in particular was much more up on the high school hierarchy than Andrea was. Okay. Which in my high school situation meant that they had reputations with them. They were very much mean girls. And I hated mean girls. I hated mean guys. I hated them all because I was that one guy in the corner that just like, he only hung out with people who were being genuine. All right. Mm-hmm. And so in that case, that's where she kind of ended up. And so I just so happened to make a statement just because of where she was and what she was dealing with, that my wife was way more attractive than she was, and we were dating at the time. So at that point, yes, I kind of walked myself into that. That happened. I can't take it back. But it's something that's going to happen. You're going to have that one friend that is friends with your spouse, your significant other, that just doesn't like you. All right. And so at that point, they want to be able to spend time with them because they have good memories. They can go do that. That's fine. Absolutely. I'm sure you both have that. Like there's just that one guy that's Nathan's friend that isn't yours kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I like to consider Nathan's friends as my friends, but well, I mean, Nathan and I both don't really hang out with either one of our friends all that much. So like
that's why we make the joke is like, we need to go hang out again. Couples night.
No, seriously, there's
each other.
Like, I mean, I saw my best friend the one who officiated our wedding on New Year's Eve, and it had almost been a full entire year since we had seen each other. We saw one of Nathan's friends a couple weeks ago. We went to Longhorn Steakhouse for a combined birthday dinner. So yeah, it was just last month. And before then, we hadn't seen him in like 10 months. So it just, because a lot of these people, we tend to just like text or chat on our own time. In the event of our buddy we went to go get steak with last month, we play Final Fantasy 14 together. So we already like, we chit chat, we already like hang out, but it's not physically hanging out. Right. But I mean, I like to consider his friends my friends,
or at least you try.
Yeah. But I mean, if I hung out with all of them a little bit more often, I'm pretty sure there could be someone who I may not see eye to eye right away, or may annoy me, but I just can't say for sure.
What about you, Shay?
So far, I actually get along with all of my boyfriend's friends.
Very good.
I think one of the big things though is that, you know, our core group of friends, we actually all used to work together. They all still work together. I used to work with them, and then I left the company and I ended up working somewhere else, but we're still friends. So we also like hang out with each other, go to dinner. Him and his friends, they have their like core-knit group, their whole like chat where they chat all together all the time, which is perfectly fine with me. His other friends whom I ended up meeting that he either used to work with before or had known for a long time, I met them and we get along pretty well. If they don't like me, I don't know about it. So I'm okay with leaving it that way for now. As far as with meeting my friends, he's like the majority of my friends. There was like one friend where he wasn't for sure of when he first met her. But now he's pretty okay with her. But overall, we haven't yet. So thankfully just yet, but I'm sure that if we ever like came across that, as far as how me and him, both of us would probably kind of deal with it, is it's kind of like, hey, you want to go hang out with them? I'ma stay, hang out at home. Perfectly fine. I'll let you go. And we're both
go catch up on my Netflix.
Yeah. Like I'll just, I'm fine hanging out. You go have fun, hang out, let them know I said hi, just real cordial. Exactly. If that ever is the case.
And this just kind of leads into the other part of this question too, is that again, it doesn't mean you have to do everything together. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Scrubs, but one of the episodes that drives me the most nuts, because it fills the stereotype so much. But when Turk and Carla are about to get married and the episode decides to literally personify them as joined at the hip. And so they literally go around the hospital together, joined at the hip, and the other part is that they get kind of condescending because they're in the relationship and you're not. And so at that point, it's just like, oh, this is a funny episode, but I kind of hate you because it's like, you're constantly judging and you're joined at the hip. Just stop it. So with that, this actually just kind of goes into the other part. Is it okay for me to do my own thing, even though my significant other doesn't like that fandom? I'm sorry, give me a second here. Yes! 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 Yes!
Yes, it's okay. It's perfectly fine. Just
your relationship will survive, I promise.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Okay, I do a lot of podcasts, and one of the ones that I do is a pro wrestling podcast. My wife is not a fan of pro wrestling. And in fact, whenever it is on, when I have to go and review a pay-per-view so that we can do a podcast, she walks in and she goes, oh, pro wrestling. Never mind. Walking out. Kind of thing. Does that mean she hates me? No. In fact, one of the things that's really funny is she gets to see a lot of these pro wrestlers on YouTube because some of these wrestlers have YouTube channels. And so at that point, she gets to see them in whole other lights. So she likes people like AJ Styles from the YouTube perspective, but she doesn't need to go and see him in the ring, kind of thing. That's something that we don't do together. There are a lot of series that she tends to kind of go a little bit more tame. She wants what she wants. Hence why, I make the joke of I can never get rid of cable TV, because if I did, I'd be getting rid of Freeform or ABC Family and my wife would kill me. Because it doesn't matter. Like whatever show that they're running, she wants to watch it. whether it be a rom-com, whether it be, you know, a mystery series, she probably wants to see it. And that's fine. I'm not the biggest fan. In fact, a lot of those shows drive me absolutely nuts because I've written better than that. So at that point, what I go off and do is I go and watch something on Netflix. Go catch up on anime. Go catch up on a series like Castlevania that I'm really getting interested in. Okay. It's not against the law. You can go and do your own thing. And with my rant done and me getting off the soapbox, anything you guys want to add?
It's fun being able to do your own thing.
Yes.
Without the other person there. It's fun. You have your own little hobby or your own little show that you like to watch. I mean, I'm sure every relationship has that. I know for me, like, there's moments where, like, my boyfriend wants to play. Like, right now, he's obsessed with playing Kingdom Hearts 3. I haven't played the games, so sometimes I'll watch him play it, but most of the time, I'll take out my iPad and I'll watch YouTube videos. And sometimes he doesn't even like the same YouTubers that I watch, and he's like, I can't watch this. And he'll watch Netflix on his computer while I'm on his TV watching YouTube. It's perfectly fine. We're still in the same room as each other. We're just not talking to each other because we're immersed in different things. And we'll usually, like, at one point, take our headphones off and be like, hey, are you hungry? Yeah, let's go get something to eat. Like, we're perfectly fine with doing that every now and then. Like, it's perfectly fine. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I mean, me and my wife have different YouTubers that we tend to watch. In fact, one of the things that I give her endless crap over is so when it comes to Pokemon playthrough, she has to watch Purple Rodri, and Purple Rodri drives me nuts because he could fix his mic at any given moment and it would sound so much better. But that's because this is what I do. This is what I do on a regular basis. It actually bugs me when people are doing it wrong, so to speak. I try to turn that off. I really do, but it does bug me. The other one that she's starting to get into is since she never played a Zelda game growing up, her family and household was a Sega household. So at that point, she's getting into Zelda now, and she's almost like entirely caught up. And so she found a YouTuber by the name of Zelda Master, who I get why she likes him. I just can't do him. He drives me nuts, especially considering that he's a Zelda completionist. And for me, like, I don't have to go and do all the bug catching. All right. I don't have to go and do the archery range. I'm just perfectly happy with going through the story and then realizing that Link and Zelda didn't kiss again. And damn it. Brenton, what about you?
No, I completely agree. It's okay. Like, I'm sitting here trying to.
By the way, I'm sorry if I'm wrecking people's ears, but it's like,
Nah, I'm sure you're fine. I'm like sitting here trying to think because I know for a fact there are things that I like that Nathan doesn't, and vice versa. And I know that even you and I have talked about it, Drax. I just can't think of it off the top of my head at this point in time. But it's like, it really is completely fine, because one thing that Nathan and I really like doing is, if we don't have a particular interest in something, and Heroes of the Storm is the example I'm going to use, we invite each other to try. Yeah. We always try at least once, maybe twice, to really try to get a feel for what it is. And if we don't like it, then it is fine. I can't tell you how many times before I really started to get into Heroes of the Storm, when Nathan would be like, hey, I'm going to play a couple of matches of HOTS with Nick, my brother-in-law, and then we can get on and do something together, or go downstairs and you play this, or I play that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then it allows me to catch up on Netflix shows that we don't watch together, because we watch a lot of, like, there's definitely a lot of Netflix that we watch together, but there are shows. Even
you kind of admitted, like, some of the games, one of you in the relationship has more of a vested interest than the other. And so that one gets to pre-order it, that one gets to get it, and that one gets to play it, kind of thing. And that's the way to be able to do it.
Yeah.
One thing, actually, no, that does not, what I was about to say doesn't apply to what we're talking about. But ultimately in the end, like, it's okay. I mean, I'm mad just because we don't play HOTS anymore, because I finally did start getting into it more, because I was able to like purchase heroes that I was more comfortable with. I was performing and playing very well with. So I was like, I can do this. Like, this is fun. And then all Activision Blizzard's drama for the past almost 6 months. But so I'm sad we're not playing anymore, but that has given us more time to put, like, it gave us more time to put into WoW, which we stopped playing, but it's given us more time to put into Final Fantasy 14. It's given us more time to put into all the other many games that we have, and it's okay. It really is just okay, because if Nathan and I both equally liked every little thing that we engaged in, then I feel like it's just going to start causing problems, because then you're going to start having debates, as most fandoms do, about certain things of that particular fandom. And I don't want to get into some stupid argument about whether or not Sasuke's emo or not. So, I mean, we both agree that Sasuke's an idiot, so it's fine. But I mean, I'm sure there is some relationship out there where they're like, no, Sasuke had a reason.
We agree, but then we have that weird. I know we've talked about this before, but for some reason, him being a deadbeat dad in Boruto just kind of works for me. I don't know why.
Oh my gosh, I have a coworker who's like, he's better in Boruto, and I was like, I don't give a flying fuck.
But he's a deadbeat dad. That's the funniest part about it. He is the most deadbeat dad ever, and yet he works better than he did in Shippuden. So, all right. So, I know we're so mean.
I know.
mean, this could be worse. It could be Bleach. We could be railing off on Bleach like we did on Devil May Cry. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the next question here, which is, this comes up quite a bit too. What is the best kind of date that people would that we would recommend that people do? And they didn't necessarily specify for like a first date or anything like that. So there really isn't a wrong answer here. And my assessment is simply whatever works. All right. So I mean, a lot of guys tend to make the assumption that, at least the ones that I've met, that the girls want the fancy dinners. They want the fancy movies. They want the fancy experiences. They want to go ice skating. They want to go, they want to go do all the things that you see on the reality shows. And that's not necessarily the case. There are a lot of girls that are just happy going out to a park and just talking, kind of thing. And so at that point, you kind of have to judge your dates based off of what you know that person likes. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, if we were going to set it to like a first date, I'd start small. I really would. I would just say, like, let's meet together at a coffee shop or wherever works best. And, you handle your lunch, I'll handle my lunch, and we just sit back and talk, kind of thing. That would be, to me, kind of the ideal first date there. And in my opinion, that kind of a date, the pressure's off. At that point, there's not expectations, because that's one of the things that kind of bugs me now is, my little brother and a couple of my other friends are on the dating scene, and they immediately say, like, there's such an expectation for the relationship to go super, super fast. And that wouldn't work for me. So I always just recommend start off slow, just start off a little bit more on neutral terms. And then at that point, if you want to push things further, get to know that person. And then at that point, you can make it work. Like, if they really are excited to go see Deadpool 3, just be secretive about it and take them to Deadpool 3. That's what works in that relationship. But that'd be my recommendation. Like, don't do anything huge and exorbitant. I've known too many guys that have spent like upwards of $200 to $300 on a date. And this was a first date, and it didn't work out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would say also the same thing. Start out with like coffee or something. Something small, especially if you don't really know the person very well. I would say think of a first date as like an interview.
Exactly. It's a job interview.
Like, I'm going to figure out whether or not I really want to have a second date with you, and then we'll go from there. I think it was also, I can't remember if it was one of my friends or if I heard this somewhere. One person was like, I determine what we're gonna do on a first date depending on how dinner goes. So they'll do dinner first, and they'll be like, if I don't like you very much, we'll go to a movie because I can sit in the dark for 2 hours and don't have to talk to you. But the dinner goes well, we'll do something else more fun, like mini golfing or bowling, where we can actually talk to each other so I can get to know you better. And I'm like, that's smart, but also kind of weird. But I'm like, I get it. But I would say, start out small. I know for people, movies are like the cliche kind of a thing, but if you've been talking to this person for a while and they're as big of a movie buff as you are, then go see a movie. But if you're someone where you're like, I don't know if I want to do a movie thing, then try like mini golfing. Try something that's fun, especially if the person that you're talking to, like if you feel like or if they like video games, go to somewhere like, I know for me out here, we have like Dave and Buster's. Like go to like a arcade game place. Go somewhere fun. Like, yeah.
Do we have a Dave and Buster's anymore? Do you know, Brinson?
Yeah, it's I went for Nathan's birthday. It was hella fun.
I don't think I've ever actually been to our Dave and Buster's.
It's at the Gateway. It hasn't been open for very long.
I need to go there. I need to try it at least once. But yeah, there you go. Like, and now because Shay has put the image in my head, now I need to go and get our artist Marta working on a t-shirt where it's just like, this is a first date where where the guy and the girl are literally handing their resumes over to each other. Just like they're dating resumes.
That's perfect.
That would be amazing.
I also want to put out there for like just anybody in general, like if you're going on a first date, please bring your own money just so that you don't have the expectation the other person's going to pay, because you honestly never know. I know way too many girls that have like, I went on a date and I didn't have any money with me because I expected he was going to pay. And I'm like, don't always think that the other person's going to pay. Like, please bring your own money. I've heard horror stories where like someone I knew, they would like, there was a couple in front of them and they were like younger kids, like teenagers. And it was a guy and a girl that were going to go to the movies, and the guy buys his ticket for the movie theater. And the girl goes, oh, you're not buying my ticket? He's like, you didn't bring your own money. And I'm like, oh my God, like, that's terrible. Because now neither one of them could go because the girl didn't bring her money or didn't have any money because the assumption was there. So always bring that like emergency, like $40 with you so that you have it just in case. And then depending on if you had to pay for yourself or not, and if you expected that person to pay, like, from there, determine whether or not you want to go on a second date.
Exactly. I mean, like, for crying out loud, like my generation, since I'm the old fart here, it like had that stigma of the guy had to pay. Like if it was going to be a date, the guy had to pay. But thankfully, when I dated not just Andrea, one other girl that I dated also did something to that effect. They had like it wasn't $40. It was like an emergency like $20. Yeah. And so at that point, you could still shape a simple date around $20. So at that point, like that was really cool because not only that, it also kind of took the pressure off for me, which for me with dating, pressure has always been an issue. Like at that point, you're expected to be the most interesting man in the world. And I'm just kind of not. I've got my share of stories, but not to the extent like where I've gone mountain biking and lost my leg or something like that. I've never had those kinds of stories. And so it kind of takes the edge off a little bit and it takes the pressure off. What about you, Brinton? Any recommendations for dates?
I would say make it something that you both agree upon. So because like that works well for Nathan and I, just so that one person, I mean, occasionally here and there we'll surprise each other with little things, but I definitely love being involved in, hey, let's have a date night. What are we thinking? You know, let's make it about us and make it about what sounds good to the both of us. And I think that could work really well for a first date because then it's something that you're both invested in. It's something that you both want to do instead of, hey, how about I take you to go do this? And it may not be something interesting to you. And then you end up doing it and hating life because I've totally done that.
And you kind of know this with me too, Brinton, is that like for me, I'm kind of set in my ways. I very much enjoy what I enjoy. Yeah. And so at that point, that already gives me a huge handicap when it comes to dating because I'm usually setting things up the way I know how to set them up because that's what I know I like. And that's what I know I'm going to be comfortable in. And so at that point, you know, being able to approach things on neutral ground at least allows for that level of comfort in case you're just as apprehensive about this as the other person. kind of deal. It really just helps.
Yeah. I think also
Uh-oh.
Sorry. Quote came out. I think also just like make sure you just have fun. I know for me, like my boyfriend and I have gone mini golfing a few times on dates, sometimes like double dates with other friends or other couples. And I know that I am horrible at mini golfing. So it's not my favorite thing to do. But every time we go, I'm always like, I'm really bad at this, but I always have fun with how terrible I am. So it's like, I'll make fun of how bad I am and how long it takes me to finally get the ball in the hole. Like, you know, so just have fun with it, or even like make it like a joke. And if you guys are both terrible at it, that makes it even better. I mean, like the last time that we went mini golfing, we went with another couple that we know, and the girl like accidentally, when she hit her ball, she knocked it into the fountain and we couldn't find it again, and we had to go get her another one. So that became like the laugh of the night, because me and the girl were both so bad at it. So it was just, you know, just have fun with it, you know, don't put too much pressure on yourself, and just know that if it doesn't work out, it's okay.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so moving on into the next question. This is another thing that also came up quite a bit and kind of drove me nuts, because I've had friends that have had kind of this mindset as well. What if my relationship fails and it just feels like that's the end of the world? What if I don't think that I'll be lucky enough to find another as good to me as the one who just left me? Okay, deep breath. There's a major problem in your logic, which is, how did you find the one that did work? If you weren't lucky enough to be able to find them, then how did you find that one? That's the first question that I have to ask, in all honesty, because the bottom line is that when relationships fail, does that suck? Yes, it does. Like, you can't avoid that. But is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. It feels like that for a good couple of months, you know, while you're stacking up on ice cream and everything like that, just to try and make yourself feel good. Okay, maybe that's just me. But it's Slurpees for me. All right, confession time. So at that point, yeah, it feels like the end of the world. But the funniest thing is like, yeah, you feel like this was the luckiest relationship, even though it lasted 4 months. And then when you find somebody and that ends up working for 6 months, you don't necessarily acknowledge the fact that, like, oh, well, this one turned out to be a lot better. Huh. I never thought about it that way. But a lot of people tend to, and here's the thing, a lot of people in relationships will take crap from their significant other simply because they don't think they can do better. And you can. Like, one of the ones that drives me so nuts is my best friend who got into a relationship that was just not good for either of them. There was nothing there, and unfortunately things got far enough that, crap happened, and now life is a ton more complicated. But they were never able to make the relationship work. And it wrecked both of them, because bottom line is, he literally took a lot of the crap that she dealt out to him because he literally didn't think he could do any better. Why? Because he hadn't been able to find any relationship. Granted, without saying the person's name, he didn't really go out of his way to be able to go out and date. But he literally thought, well, like, this is the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me, even when she's punching me in the face. Like, no, it's not. And you could find better. I know that it feels like you can't, but you can. It can work out. I hate to be the guy that throws out the saying, but there are plenty of other fish in the sea, and there are plenty of other women and or men that are not going to treat you like crap.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I can say that for certainty, because I have been there.
Well, and the other thing that drives me nuts, and I promise we'll get you back to you, Brenton, is like, a lot of the times where I see this happen, it's with geeks. All right. It's with nerds who don't think they can do any better because of the stigmas of nerds in my time, as well as you guys' time. All right. And that's not the case, because nerds are human beings too. Anyway, sorry.
No, all I was gonna say was that I know that for a certainty because I have been there. And the thoughts definitely are in the back of your mind. There's no way that I can do better. Like, this is honestly like that was it. That was it. But then the other part of your mind, of your conscience, is telling you, no, obviously it wasn't it. Obviously you can do better, because this can't be it. You can't just, this can't just be the end and there's nothing left for you. That being treated like crap was the best that it was going to get. No, that's not possible at all. But I don't think that you need to like try to rush into something or try to get yourself out there immediately after a nasty breakup, and maybe not even after an amicable breakup either. You just need to take your time. You need to rediscover yourself. And you need to just kind of give yourself some self-care. Really nice self-care. Treat yourself a little bit before you jump back into the dating scene, because like I had mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong with being single. There's nothing wrong with going to see Deadpool on Valentine's Day by yourself. You just go and do it.
It's a tad awkward, but it works.
It was still fun. I enjoyed it.
I would actually say Deadpool 2 probably wouldn't be as awkward as that on Valentine's Day. There's just a couple of scenes in Deadpool that make it incredibly awkward. So
I was thriving off of it.
All right, well, there you go.
I mean, at that point in my life, I just had to thrive off of it, so it worked.
It was actually kind of funny my wife actually saw Deadpool for the first time literally about a month ago. Like she had been apprehensive about seeing them, and she saw that I was laughing at them. So she's like, okay, what the heck? I'll check them out. And so we literally sat and watched Deadpool in the comfort of our own home. And that we got to the scenes that I'm talking about, which is basically where him and his girlfriend are starting to hook up. And she was just like, whoa, I didn't expect this happening. Yeah, this is an R-rated movie, hun. Didn't you expect that? She's like, yeah, I forgot that it was an R-rated movie. It was kind of cute to be able to see her go through that. It's just like, yeah, it is a little bit awkward to see moments like that, especially if you're going alone on Valentine's Day. That wouldn't work out.
Bless her little heart.
Yes, but the funniest part is she likes Deadpool 2 just as much as I do because of all the 80s references. So it worked out. Shay, anything you want to add in on that one?
Yeah. So I've been there where you've been hurt by somebody, and just know that it will get better. Just know that you don't have to stay in a relationship that, you feel is complete crap because you feel like you're not going to find somebody else. The one, I think, quote that I've always lived by is that sometimes things fall apart so that better things can fall together. And I can definitely attest to that. Before I got with my boyfriend, I got really, really hurt from another individual. And I mean, I was hurt. Like, I had never felt heartbreak before. And I used to think heartbreak was a myth. I was like, there's no way you can ever feel that bad. No, I felt that bad. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was going to work running off of like 3 hours of sleep sometimes. And the worst part was the individual that basically broke my heart I worked with. So I had to see him, and I had to see his girlfriend. So it sucked. One thing I can say is, if you're friends with this person on social media, stay off social media, because you're going to do nothing but stalk this person's page to all things that's not going to make you feel any better, especially if you see them with somebody else. But
yeah, I haven't dealt with that on my own, but I've seen other people do it, and that's really good advice.
It sucks. For me, I even unfriended both these individuals until I felt better, and then I refriended them back once I was okay. But with him, if things wouldn't have never fallen apart with that individual, I never would have gotten with my boyfriend and saw how I should have been treated. And I will honestly say this now, I'm grateful that me and this guy didn't work out. I'm so grateful for it now, because it taught me so much. And it literally was kind of like, without that happening, I would have never gotten with who I'm with now. So just know, like, it's going to get better, and it's okay to feel depressed or down for a little bit about it, but try not to stay there. it's a don't make it feel like people are like telling you, oh, get over it or whatever. Like, no, go through it if you want to go through it. It's perfectly fine. You're entitled to doing that. Just try not to stay there for too long, and then, you know, reach out to people, hang out with your friends, you know, do things that you enjoy, you know, just try your best. But just know that you will find somebody else, and the person that you find will be usually a lot of times better than whom it was that you were with before. So just don't feel like your entire life is over because you're not with the person you're with before.
Yeah, exactly. Because in a lot of cases, the other thing that I also kind of notice in those kinds of relationships, and I think this is also something that needs to be avoided, is there is hero worship, or at least some degree of hero worship that's being put into play with the other person. And guys, I've done hero worship in my life, and it's never ended me up in anywhere good, because the bottom line is that while you're putting that other person up on the pedestal, guess where you're putting you? And you can debate it with me all you want, but you're putting them up in the lofty place, and you're putting yourself in the crap box. All right. That's always how hero worship works. And it's never a healthy thing. Like, I get where people can have hero worship for celebrities and things like that, but that's why I have like that healthy respect, not necessarily just outright, they are so much better than me, because the bottom line is you don't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially when you're early on in a relationship and things are going sour already, is that you don't know that they are better. And so at that point, you're making a lot of assumptions that hurt you. They don't make things better. They hurt you.
Yeah. Also, something I just want to add that kind of helped me was, if you notice a running pattern with the people that you tend to date, I did something where I actually wrote down all of my boyfriend's names. I wrote down what happened, how it went wrong, what was my fault, what was their fault. And then once I saw it written down, I saw what my pattern was. And I was like, okay, now I know what to not do the next time I start dating somebody. So that even can be kind of helpful. I know it's not like the best thing sometimes, but sometimes when it's written down in front of your face, you can be like, oh, I realize I do the hero worship all the time. Now I know, like, I need to work on that. Like, that, as I can see, this doesn't work. So there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, I've done that too. And it actually is very helpful, because sometimes you can even just kind of laugh at the reality that gets put in front of you, because up until that point, like, I keep on saying this to Brent, and Shay hasn't heard this necessarily, but who I am now was very different from who I was in high school and early on into my 20s. And so, like, at that point, I was not a guy that was really worth getting along with, because I was probably going to be a detriment to that relationship, kind of thing. And when I actually did that personal inventory, I guess I don't mean this in a bad way, but I actually looked at it and went, wow, I literally look for my mom when I date, when I find prospective people to date. And maybe that's not necessarily the best thing. I love my mom, but she definitely had some flaws, and those are creating issues for me. So yeah, it's always a great idea to just do that personal inventory, to learn what you can from that relationship. Because here's the thing, and I know that it's a tired quote, but that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. All right. So there you go. Moving into the next one. And this one is a big subject. My significant other wants to bite the bullet and have kids, yet I am scared of being able to be a geek and a dad/mom at the same time. Wow. There's a lot to take in there. And this is definitely something that Shay, I don't think, has had to deal with yet.
Nope, I haven't. No. My friends have kids, so I play more like an auntie role than actually like a mom.
Hey,
role
that's the way to be able to do it. Like, be the cool auntie, and then at that point determine, like, do I want to have kids of my own? Because then at that point I can be the cool mom, kind of thing. No, this is a big subject, and frankly one that I don't even think one podcast could technically take on.
No, that definitely, I completely agree with you, because I know there's so much that I could say alone to this response that would not like we just wouldn't, like we don't have enough time even for me to answer this.
No, the best way that I know how to explain it as succinctly as possible is kids are a big step. And so at that point, like that's taking what you have already and moving it to a whole new level, because then at that point, one of the things you have to realize, as I'm realizing now as a dad of two, the relationship isn't necessarily about you guys anymore. It becomes about them. And so at that point, you have to be able to be willing to give of yourself to a major extreme, because we're talking little human beings that are going to be relying on you to feed them, to teach them, to clothe them, and all of that. And so at that point, that adds a lot of pressure to the relationship. And if, say, you're 1 year into marriage, I would honestly tell you guys, maybe get a couple of years in there and then determine whether or not kids are the right thing, kind of thing. Like if you want to adopt, if you want to actually have kids, there's a lot to unpack there. But it's definitely, it's one of those things where if you're getting into those conversations a lot, then sit down and have the talk and put everything on the table. Put your, are you concerned that you're going to be able to be, are you going to be able to get your collector's editions as well as be able to buy diapers? Probably not, at least for a couple of years. And that's fine. But you need to put that all out on the table and actually assess it. Like, are you ready to be a parent? Because that is really what the question is. Are you ready to be a parent? Your significant other might be there, but you might not be. And so at that point, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because your significant other can help you to get there. So sorry for the non-answer, but really, like, if you want to unpack it a little bit more, you guys can reach out to me and I can give you like whatever little advice that I can give you. Because here's the thing, like Brinton could probably help out a little bit more, because like I'm dealing with an infant and a toddler.
I'm dealing with a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old.
So he's dealing with teenagers, like that's the way it goes. Like that's the thing I'm worried about.
I also have 2 boys who are currently in the system, because I'm a foster parent who hopes to be an adoptive parent. Yeah. So where this question becomes tricky for me to answer is that there's a lot more that I have to unpack, and there's a lot more that I have to do, not only for my children, but also for myself as an individual, and also for Nathan and I as a married couple, in order for all of this to succeed and work out.
Well, in your situation too, there's not just the relationship question, there's also the legal system question.
Right. Yes. There's also the, are we ready to having to take on and unpackage 2 individuals' past traumas, mm-hmm. and be able to carry it for them, so that way they can move on with their lives and be able to succeed in the world, so that way they just don't drown in this sea of trauma that they have. Because
that's unfortunately kind of, it's not necessarily the complete reality, but it is a harsh reality that in some cases when you're going into like a foster parenting situation, you're kind of there picking up the pieces.
Yes.
And so at that point, like, you do your best with it. And it's a whole, like, to me, it's like a whole other specialization of parenting in a lot of cases, because in a lot of cases, I kind of put myself in that situation and go, could I actually do it? Because I've already got so much stuff that messes me up. Like, could I actually be able to help somebody that young try to figure that out on their own? I don't know.
It's I'll be honest, it's difficult. More than ever recently, I'm having to kind of face the fact that I, through my own personal trauma and through my own hardships in life, I tend to put myself very last, and it's something that I need to stop doing. And it's hard for me to accept that, just because it's never worked for me, but I pretend it works for me. So I continue to make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
Quotation marks between that. And so I'm kind of like recently at a point in my life right now where I need to figure out, is this something that, is this something that I need to fix? It's something I need to fix. How am I going to fix it? When am I going to start?
Yeah, exactly.
So again, like kind of giving an answer here, but it would take a while for me to properly answer this. If I were to give kind of a non-answer, I would go back to what Drac just said. Sit down and like discuss it with your partner, especially if you're in a heterosexual relationship, because obviously it's going to be, actually, I shouldn't say it should be super easy. Miscarriage is a thing. It's easy.
Well, and the other thing you have to consider is that, well, one of you is going to go through some easy things and the other one isn't.
Exactly.
Right?
I would say it's, the opportunity is there. For me, where I am in the same gender relationship, I obviously neither one of us can get each other pregnant, so we have to look out for more options. But still, the communication has to be there. You have to sit down, you have to list the pros and cons and the concerns. And again, trust that when your partner is telling you, I have faith in you, I know you're going to be a good parent, that you take what they say, not with a grain of salt, but you take what they say, you take it to heart, and you go with it. Mm-hmm. And whatever happens next, happens next.
Exactly. So I think that's pretty much all we can add in there. Shay, is there anything else you wanted to add to it?
Yeah, for me, just because I don't have any kids, I don't have much of a say. So the only thing I can say is basically reiterate that what they said was, have that talk with your partner, have that talk, and make sure that you guys are both ready for kids and everything else. My experience with kids is only with my friends that have kids, and my friends that have kids, they were not planned. So they kind of just like had to like just go with it and just hope for the best. But just know that if you choose to do that, choose to have kids, it will change your relationship, and make sure that you're, prepared for that and you're ready for that. And that, that's pretty much it. Just talk to each other about it.
So there you go. All right. So the next question we've got is, so what if my significant other isn't, this is kind of going back to something we've already covered, but what if my significant other isn't interested in a fandom that I'm a really big fan of? Can I still be a fan of it if they don't like it?
Of course you can.
I don't know. Do you think you can be?
Yeah. If there's a problem if you feel like you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the problem. I think that's the problem with you, not so much your partner.
Right.
Yeah, that's a personal hurdle.
Yeah, like now, unless your partner's like, you can't be a part of this fandom, like that's also a problem. But if it's mostly just you feel that way, that's a bit of a.
I mean,
I think
the most
part
that
of, sorry, go ahead,
Brenton.
No, I was gonna say a part of life is being comfortable with who you are and what you like.
Yeah.
I think that's something that you need to be very confident about before you even get into a relationship. So that way, when your partner does not really, really like your that particular fandom as much as you really do not like it, you can comfortably not care. My ex-boyfriend, I don't think he was part of the community or part of it anymore, but he used to be a furry. And I think they're just absolutely disgusting.
I could see this being a problem for you.
I mean, offense intended. Like, this is not one of those, oh, no offense. Like, no, if you're a furry watching this, like, screw you. I think it's gross and disgusting. And like, I recently read an article that it's banned in all of Germany. So congrats, Germany. I wish that would happen here in America. But when he said, like, thank you. I feel so happy with myself right now. But when he was like, oh, everybody goes through a furry phase, I was like, not me, never gonna happen.
No.
This conversation's done. Are you kidding me? Like, what
I didn't even know furries were a thing until a CSI episode. And I just kind of I kind of watched that episode and went, ew. And
they had a convention near me pretty like every year. So I had heard about it, but I was also very confused. And I was like, I don't understand why this is a thing.
And like my ex-husband, my husband's ex-husband is a furry, not was, is, as in present day. And oh my gosh, do I love shitting on him behind his back for it. Oh my gosh. I came, was I moved in by that point? Well, anyway, I came over after work. Well, I mean, I came home. I pretty much was living with Nathan by the time we started dating. I was never at my apartment after that. But anyway, so I come home and he's like, there's this like one day he's like prowling around in this furry suit. And I was just like, oh dear God, why? Like, why does this have to be a normal thing right now? I am so glad he doesn't live here anymore. Oh, I guess that accentuates the fact that he was, yeah. Anyway, so
I love that this has gone the direction that it has.
I'm like, this is the best example I can think of, because for the most part, like, between all the relationships I've been in, we've all been able to like enjoy something equally, apart from here and there not having the same interests, but never to the point, except with my ex-boyfriend, where like I legitimately shut down an argument because I flat out said furries are stupid. They are 100% stupid, unnecessary, and I don't understand it, don't want to understand it. No, actually, I do understand it, and I just still think that it's absolutely stupid and unnecessary. And it's gross. It's so gross and weird. And like, it's just, it gives me the creeps and just makes my skin crawl. And I can go on and on and on about this. And I just shut him down, and I was like, we're not talking about this. I will never have a furry phase. Having a furry phase isn't a thing. You are or you aren't. You don't just decide one day you're done. Like, I feel like once you're a furry, you're just like trapped. And even if you don't really want to do it anymore, you're just like trapped. And oh my gosh, I shut that down so quick. It just, but I'm not gonna lie. If he said that he was still like kind of into it and actively like wanting to do stuff like that, I would have been like, hey, we're done. I'm just not like, I'm not going to support this. It's too weird for me. But of course, getting back on point,
I wish I had a better story than that, but I mean, the only story that I have of like hostility amongst fandoms is, so one of my friends, actual girl friends that I can stand, and she doesn't hate my guts or anything like that, because I'm horribly blunt, and that gets me in trouble a lot of the time. You have no idea, Shay. It gets me in trouble a lot, and there's just no way to get around it. Brent has actually seen it get me in trouble. So at that point, like, I knew her first, and then eventually got to meet the guy friend, and she was hardcore Trekkie, like hardcore, loved every series. She could see the positive in Enterprise. She could see the positive in even the worst of Star Trek movies, because like she could enjoy Star Trek V because it's a horrible crap fest made by William Shatner, but she could find things to enjoy out of it. All right.
Wow. That sounds like me.
So like she is super Trekkie. She's the ultra optimist. Okay. And this is why her and me and the boyfriend get along, but she kind of gets a little mad about it, is for some reason Trekkies absolutely hate any derivative of Trek. And so in this case, her boyfriend was a big fan of a series called Babylon 5. All right. Which is not necessarily a Trek derivative, but it is considered to be one, because it came out around the time that Trek was hot. And so at that point, since I'm also a Babylon 5 fan, but I am also a Trek fan, him and me get along very swimmingly, and she gets mad because she's like, stop bringing up Babylon 5 here. Babylon 5 is inferior. And it's just like, it's one of those things where we actually kind of get together, and I'm not saying we make fun of her for it, but it's just like, you do realize that things like Sequest were actually kind of, we don't speak about Sequest here. It's like, okay, calm. I hate to go down this line, but calm your tits for a second. All right. Picard's great. I'm willing to acknowledge that Picard is great for you, but so is Sheridan. And he's like, no. And so it's kind of one of those funny things now, but I could see where that becomes an issue. Here's why it wasn't an issue for their relationship, because they already had so much other stuff that they could get along with, that all he had to do was, again, go and spend his own time watching his Babylon 5 DVDs. All right. That's what needed to happen. And as soon as like she walked in and saw the DVD, she's like, yeah. And then walks out. All right. It's completely fine. That's the worst that I've ever had, is you have those kinds of issues. And for crying out loud, my family was dedicated pro Star Trek, and the other side was pro Star Wars. All right. That's the most that I've ever dealt with in geeky fandoms. It's okay to like what you really want to like. And some people are not going to like what you like. You can still be a fan of it. You could still find some kind of like that is what inspires you. So if that's what works for you and it doesn't work for her or him, then that's the way it works. That's the way it is. Shay, what about you?
For me, like, I don't know if my boyfriend and I have, I think the only fandom that I can see us like not agreeing on too often, or at least it takes a little bit more like talking to with him about it, is like, I guess the whole like YouTube fandom and those of us who like make or are creators on YouTube. He doesn't understand putting your life out there on YouTube or like making YouTube videos sometimes.
Yeah.
He supports me in what I do. Bottom line, that's the good thing. He supports me in what I do, but I also make sure that I respect it. And I'm like, look, I could put myself out there online. I won't put you on there online. We have that line driven. That's the only thing. As far as like fandoms like anime and stuff like that, I think the only one that him and I
more so because anime is the fandom that has a lot of animosity within it.
Yeah.
Like,
me and him, like, we're both in the anime fandom. I don't know if we have like any like hardcore where we are both into like different fandoms within the anime fandom. We tend to kind of like a lot of the same stuff, but well, actually, some of the shows that he watches, I don't really watch, which is fine. I just let him watch it, and I'm like, hey, it's fine with me. Like, it's keeping you occupied. So I'm occupied with my own thing. It's perfectly fine. We have no problem with it. Only other one I can think of is like Avatar. I've watched some of it, but I haven't gotten really into it. But he loves Avatar, and I'm like, I get it. I'm not into it yet, but I get it. But yeah, so it's
that's the other thing too, is that you can empathize because you're passionate about that with another fandom kind of thing. So for him, like Avatar The Last Airbender is an amazing thing. For you, I'm just throwing this out, like Naruto is an amazing thing, and it might not necessarily be that way for him. Like, you know, I mean, for crying out loud, I've seen a lot of anime-based relationships where you have, you know, dedicated, one side is just dedicated shonen and the other one finds more interesting stuff out of the drama side of the anime and being able to do the slice of life stuff kind of thing.
Yeah, but for me and him, we have a lot of other things that we get along with, that we're into. We know that our fandoms are not the biggest part of our relationship. We know it's just one part of it, but we have other things that we get that we're perfectly, you know, have in common. So that's one thing that we're like, hey, it's cool to have something that you guys find that is different from each other. It's okay.
All right. So yeah, I think we pretty much covered this one. Let's go ahead and move on into the next question, which is, what if I feel the relation? So this is kind of dipping back into serious territory. What if I feel the relationship I am in is abusive, but I want to make it work? Should I stay?
No. Leave.
Don't do that to yourself. Oh my gosh.
Speaking as a guy who's been, I'm pretty sure at some point we've all dealt with some kind of abuse or some kind of, or at least perceived abuse in relationships that we've been in. I know that I've dealt with my share of what I consider to be that. I know that Brenton has dealt with that. So at that point, no, because the bottom line is that if things are that bad, then the relationship isn't going to work. Because it's not worth it. At that point, it's completely one-sided. And unfortunately, that's not in your favor. So at that point, I would then say you need to leave. You need to do everything within your power to be able to leave, even if that means you're going to have to deal with a little bit of drama leaving kind of thing. I say that not just because I'm trying to, like, a lot of people might take that as I'm trying to wreck your life. No, I'm not. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you to take care of you. And at the same time, also realize that you deserve better. All right.
Yeah. The worst thing that can come from this is, one, the abuse is going to break you in ways that you didn't think possible. And if you stick with it, you're really going to come out scathed really, really, really bad. Kind of like Adam said, and I'm not going to go into extreme detail, but I'm not going to go into extreme detail. What I'm going to say, I'm just going to let, for those, for you two and for those listening to conjuncture whatever it is that happened to me, but my ex-boyfriend became sexually abusive. Yeah. And I decided to sit there and overcomplicate it in my head. I didn't break up with him right away. When I look back on it, I should have done it right away, but I didn't because I sat there after what had happened. And I had asked myself, and I had even questioned myself whether or not it had happened. And even tried to convince myself that what had happened didn't happen. And I could a very, very long process of trying to decide whether or not it was time for me to end it because I didn't want to be alone. And I thought that, again, I'm never going to find anything better. I'm going to end up alone. This is it. I need to make this work. And so I had done a couple, like I hung out a couple of times with said ex, and I realized very quickly just with how he was treating me, and because it was social settings that I was able to observe this, but ultimately I knew right there and then that I was done, that it was not going to work out. So I had called him up after we had hung out with a couple of his friends, and I said, I'm done and I'm not going to do this anymore. We're just not going to work out, or something along to those effects. And that was probably a week after everything had happened. And let me tell you, for all those who are listening, it doesn't matter if you get out of it like within 24 hours, within a week, within a month, within a year, within 5 years, it breaks you.
Yeah.
And it broke me because, was the drama hard? Let's just say that there are over 15 people, my ex included, whom I still have blocked on all social media platforms that I frequent. 15 people, at least.
And probably for the best.
And for the best.
Yeah.
And these are blocked people who probably don't even know who I am anymore because it's been 4 years this summer. Yeah, it'll be 4 years this summer, but there are still leftovers from what broke me that still plague me every once in a while, that manifests in my anxiety. And it's not fun because I sit there and I say to myself, I have found better. I am not in this relationship anymore. I am not in this situation anymore. I need to move on. But it's not easy. It's been 4 years and it's still not easy.
See, and for me, it wasn't necessarily sexual abuse. It was, I dealt with 1 or 2 relationships that got verbally and emotionally abusive. And in those cases, those were very difficult for me because, as Brenton kind of knows, and Shay has maybe seen a video or 2 on it, I'm already very hard on myself. I'm probably the absolute, there's no troll on YouTube that could be a worse critic of my content than me. All right. So at that point, entering into relationships like that can also wreck you. And pretty much in some cases, like where some people have it worse than me, it can absolutely, utterly destroy you. And so at that point, those are never relationships that you should be in. They never work out for you. And ultimately, you're, at least in my case, I was punishing myself for something that I didn't even do. Like, I was punishing myself because somebody had an opinion of me, and, well, F them for their opinion, kind of thing. And thankfully, I'm a better person for being able to go through that and being able to do my own personal inventory and be able to realize that, I was not half the scumbag that these guys were, that these people were making me out to be, because I wasn't, the most social, or I was, one of the things that actually hurt me, like in these relationships, was I was way more awkward than they were. And so in a lot of cases, that apparently was a weapon that I used against myself. That crap can happen, and it's never a good thing. And all it does is hurt you. It doesn't even hurt them in the long run. It hurts you. What hurt, like, if you're looking to hurt them, I wouldn't even recommend that. But I mean, the best way to be able to do that is by living your life and living it happily. Kind of thing. I'm not sure if Shay wants to interject anything on this one, but you're more than welcome to.
For me, at least I don't think I've gone through anything like that in any of my past relationships or anybody that I've been with. Kind of like Drax, the hardest person I was ever hard. For me, I was always hard on myself when it came to when I was in relationships. I think one of the worst things I ever had, a a guy ever say to me once, which really hurt at the time, was when he talked about my weight because I was small. And he was like, that I need to put on more weight. So that, that kind of sucked. That really hurt. Ultimately, things didn't work out with that. And I was glad that things didn't work out. But if you're in that type of a situation where someone's abusing you in any way, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, in any way, leave. Leave as fast as you can, and using any of the resources that you need to, especially if you feel like it's not a safe situation where you can just up and leave if you're afraid of this person. Because things can turn really tragic, not just where, you're continually hurting yourself, but where sometimes that other person, especially if it's physical abuse, can end up hurting you. Like I've heard of women and men getting killed by their significant others because things just went way too far. And just remember, I think for me, one of the biggest things for me was how, I kind of always knew I shouldn't go through anything like that, and I should leave, because one thing my dad was always like, look, if a guy ever puts his hands on you or ever does anything, please tell me, because I was like, I always know I have those family members that will have my back and will be at this guy's front door if anything were to happen. Like when I went off to school, never forget, my dad was like, hey, please don't let nothing happen where I'm up here trying to find somebody. And so I made sure, but I also knew hey, I know I deserve more than somebody who's going to be like that towards me. But if you're in that situation, especially if you don't know how to get out of it, talk to somebody, find someone you trust, ask for any resources, any help. Even if you're asking someone at work who can point you in the right direction, and even slowly but surely, either if you're living with this person, slowly but surely move your stuff out. Talk to someone, talk to your family. If you can't talk to your family, talk to your friends. If you can't talk to your friends, talk to a counselor, talk to somebody. If it's to the point where this person's hurting you, get the authorities involved. Have them keep a record, get a restraining order on this person. If it gets really, really toxic, block them. Heck, move, change your phone number. There's so many things now that can help if you're in this situation. And if it's after the fact, if you've already left the abuse, but you're still dealing with it, that's when you really need to talk to a counselor and come to terms with what happened. And also to realize that what happened was not your fault.
Exactly. I think in all honesty, we've kind of covered this, is that this is what you guys should be doing. And a relationship should be good for each side. Like I said, it's a two-way street. There has to be give and take on both sides. And if that's happening, you need to leave it. Just bottom line, clean cut, sever ties. That's the way it goes. If they want to continue to pursue it, that's them. And at that point, that's when the consequences like calling the authorities come into play. All right. So don't be afraid to be able to do that. Be assertive. Be assertive for yourself. That's always going to be the way to be able to approach this kinds of stuff. Now, we technically, that is technically the last question that we have, but I do not like ending things on somber notes. I really don't, especially when it comes to things like relationships. So thankfully, one of our kind listeners has actually provided another question to kind of lighten things up so we can wrap things up, which is, okay, we've all been in relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got any silly stories for those relationships?
Yes. Oh
I got a
gosh.
few.
Okay, give me a second. I gotta think of some good ones.
So I might give a couple, but because I have marriage stories, not just kid stories, but I also do have a relationship story that I don't think I've told Brinton yet, but I think he would get a kick out of. So it just so had I think I mentioned this to you that I actually did spend a year and a half in Idaho. All right. So
I'm so sorry.
Mom. So at that point, most of the time I've spent my life in Utah, but for a year and a half I spent in Idaho and had to go to basically rural Idaho. So at that point, just kind of picture that, Shay, city boy, gamer, hardcore geek in basically a dry farming environment. All right. Doesn't really work out. I think pretty much everybody in my high school there was calling me a city slicker. And there's yeah, we all get up at 4 a.m. to go milk the cows. There's no way you're going to be able to do that. I'm like, yep. There's no way I'd be able to do that which is funny because I actually worked earlier than them at one point in my life. But one of the things that happened to me quite a bit. In fact, my wife laughs at me now how often it happened, but I was kind of the hopeless romantic in school. And so I developed crushes very quickly. And one such actually turned out to go well for me. It was actually one of my first dates, and I'm very thankful to her for being that, especially with how super awkward I was at that time. And so like she was actually one of my biggest crushes in school, and it just so happened we had a lot in common, and she saw that she was actually one of those nice girls who saw that I was dealing with a lot of change in my life at that point and went out of her way to be a friend. Okay. And that was really awesome. And I appreciate her for it. I'm still friends with her to this day, by the way. Where we actually did date for a little bit. And I'm not talking serious dating by any stretch. We went out on 2 dates, and one of them was going to go see a movie, and one of them was just walking around our neighborhood because it's farm neighborhood. You might as well be walking in the park. And it just so happens that, well, unfortunately, the reason we had 2 dates was because while I was off visiting friends in Oklahoma, my dad got custody of me during that. And so I was then moving back to Utah. And therefore the relationship kind of got ended because I was moving back in with my dad. Well, it just so happens that after high school ended, she came down to Utah to try and pursue her career. And she was going to go to the University of Utah to pursue her career. And we were able to catch up again. We didn't date because by that point I wasn't really dating anybody. And a lot of major changes had happened at that point. So much so that she actually called me over and she says, I have something very serious that I need to talk to you about, because she knew that I was kind of impressionable. And I'm like, okay, well, so just to bring people up to speed, it'd been a couple of years since we'd seen each other. And the last time we'd seen each other, she was typical kind of farm town girl, the way that you would think that would look. Very girly. And that was okay. Like, I was probably not going to, I was the geek there. So I was lucky to be able to get that kind of a date. She was very different when I saw her next, because it just so happened that she had since come out of the closet.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I'm not saying dramatic. Like, she was still very much kind of gorgeous, making herself look like Marilyn Monroe kind of thing. But she pulled me aside because apparently I'd been the last date that she had been with, and said, I just want you to know, like, I know that you have like these confidence issues. It's not because of you. I didn't come out of the closet because of you or anything like that. And I'm just like, and by that point I didn't have the confidence issues anymore. So I was like, what are you talking about? And so she's like, oh, I've been like tortured for a while now. Like that you were going to have this problem with me. And that's why I didn't want to hang out. And I'm just like, no, date who you want to date. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So it was just one of those times where you can have like this nice, secure laugh together. And it's actually kind of cool because she is one of our most devoted listeners to the podcasts and is always willing to give feedback and things like that. So I definitely appreciate her. She's definitely been a very valuable person for feedback. So there you go. And I already got, before people jumped on my throat, I got permission to tell this story before I came on the podcast. So don't worry about that. So any other stories that you guys have before I go into marriage stories? Because I could definitely do them.
Yeah.
I've literally been sitting here like racking my brain of like some fun stories I could tell. One of the more recent ones that I thought was just kind of funny. So just kind of paint a picture of who my husband is, because I don't think anybody's really seen like a picture of Nathan per se.
No.
But I am like 150 pounds, 5'8", fairly small man, and he's like 6'1", burly, bearded, like lumberjack who I absolutely love. So and I think
one of the first jokes I made when I first met Nathan was I literally whispered in Brenton's ears, like, "Oh, I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay." I had to work all day. Just cause at that point, like, and I appreciate Nathan. Nathan's an awesome guy. But at that point, you're just like, wow, This is not what I expected.
No, a lot of people don't expect that from me, but it is what it is. So anyway, so like I'm almost 28, he's 35, and we're out going. And the reason why I mention age is because it's necessary. And so we're outside just taking the dogs out. And for some unknown reason, he decides to go out in like shorts, which fine, whatever. Hopefully the dogs will like poop really fast, but they weren't. And so out of nowhere, I'm like following behind him, and my husband starts getting really, 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 really annoyed. And he starts stomping his feet on the ground and having like a mini tantrum. And he's like, help, help. And I just like lost it for some reason, just watching this grown ass man stomping his feet and having this tantrum. And I was just like, that was really cute. And he's like, it's not cute. And I'm like, no, but it is though. It's adorable. As I'm like keeled over laughing.
I'm just seeing like, this in my head. It like, yeah, I can see this happening now.
Also, even like I was playing some Final Fantasy before I logged off to do this, and I like, oh my gosh, I wish I could like properly show this to everybody, but I like. So like I swiveled the camera around and I like zoomed in because I'm standing behind his character. So I zoom in where his face is really close to the camera, and I have it where I'm looking at him, and I took a screenshot and I sent it to him, and I'm like, being creepy, he, and and I sent it to him, and he's just like, you're so weird, stop. And I'm like, I love you. So just like little weird shit like that all the time. Oh, there's also like another thing. So there's this dungeon in Final Fantasy called the Palace of the Dead, and if you run over a trap, it will turn you into a frog. So whenever Nathan runs over it and turns into a frog, I instantly will stop attacking the boss or the mob and just start chasing Nathan. And I'm like, I'm gonna catch ya, I'm gonna catch ya, as he's like hopping away, and he's just like, stop.
Okay, now I might actually have to get into Final Fantasy 14 just to see this happening.
You should. We would totally love to play with you. But anyway, those are just some like fun things that I like to do that recently that I can think of off the top of my head.
All right. So Shay, do you have any, would you like to embarrass yourself right here?
I do. I have like one of them's actually embarrassing, and it's not involving my boyfriend. It's actually a guy that I used to have a crush on years ago. And we were friends. And he came over to my house. And my mom used to always say, you know, whenever people come over your house, have your kitchen clean and your bathroom clean. Because people, for some reason, always want to go to your bathroom. And
it's so true. I don't know why, but it's just so true.
This guy decided to use our restroom. And our toilet was not the best at the time.
Oh my gosh.
So he went in the bathroom and came back out and was like, there's a turd floating in your toilet. And I was like, oh shit. Literally,
oh my gosh. Shit. What the hell? Oh my gosh.
I was so embarrassed because the worst part is the bathroom he went in was my bathroom. So I knew it was only person that could be was me. So
jeez.
Oh my God. He of course used it, didn't mention it. But the next day, I decided to text him and apologize, which probably made it worse. But I was
probably.
I was so embarrassed. That was probably one of the most embarrassing. With my boyfriend, one of the ones that was. It's funny now to laugh at it because when we first started dating, I met his dad first, and his mom usually works like she doesn't come home till like later on at night. So I usually would never meet her because I'd be gone. So like his dad didn't really know we were dating, but he would see me come over. So he was, you know, getting an inkling we were dating. And then for some reason, it's like 11 o'clock at night and my boyfriend decides, hey, let's bake cookies. And I'm like, okay, let's bake cookies. Next thing we know, his mom's coming home. Mom has never met me in her life, never has seen me.
Okay.
and my boyfriend's Filipino, so his mom just sees this Black girl sitting in her kitchen making cookies. And so I then left not too long later. And the next morning, his mom had some questions for him, like, who was that?
Yeah.
What is her name? Are you guys dating? So that was one where it's funny to laugh at now because now I realize just how awkward it is because like I haven't had much experience with meeting like a significant other's parents. And I know that's very awkward. The last one I can think of is where I've had instances where because of the fact that I text my parents and let them know like I've made it somewhere and all of that jazz, and I let my boyfriend know, there are times where I will mistakenly text him when I meant to text like my dad, and I'll say like, "Hey daddy, I made it to work," and accidentally I've done that so many times where I'm like, "Hey, babe." He's like, no, I caught that. What were you gonna say? I was like, don't worry about it. We don't speak of that. We don't speak of that. And then I've done it vice versa, where like I've been in the house and have about to say to my dad, like, "Hey daddy," and I said, "Hey daddy, can you like do this for me?" But I almost accidentally caught my dad babe and have called my boyfriend instead of babe. I have called him dad, and I've done that a few times. So it's hilarious because my boyfriend's like, "What did you say?" And I'm like, "No, we're not getting into that. That's not okay. That's not okay."
No,
I actually did that to my sister. So it was this past Christmas, and my parents got us blankets, and like everybody, and so I'm like looking through them all, and Nathan's like, "Oh, why don't you?" He's like, "Is there a llama one?" Because they've been obsessed with llamas lately. And my sister's like, "Oh yeah, there's one right there." And I'm totally not thinking. And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, sister." And she's like, "Yeah," gives me a hug. And she's like, "You almost called me babe, did you?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
For me, it's also like laughing at stupid stuff because I'll find stuff online that I find utterly hilarious to the point where like I'm trying to read it to him. And I can't because I'm laughing so hard. So like one of them was where this person was like, it was on Instagram, and it was like, "My grandfather got bit by a spider, and as I'm leaving the room, I hear him say, 'I'm too old to have this responsibility of being Spider-Man.'" And I bust out laughing after reading it. And I'm trying to read it to my boyfriend, but I'm laughing too hard to the point where I'm crying. And he's like, he goes, "Give me that. Let me read it myself," because you can't read it. So like we've had 2 instances where that happening where he literally ends up like recording me because I'm laughing so hard to where I'm falling over. He finds it funny to take pictures of me while I'm sleeping, and I'll find them in my camera roll once I go home, and I'm like, "Why is this picture of me sleeping in there?" And he's like making a funny face. So
I need to do that.
He does it all the time, to where like I'll get home and I'll go to my camera. I'm like, "Why is there a picture of me sleeping?" And he's just in the camera like, and I'm like, "No, like you, what do you?" And I'll text him like, "So I saw that picture you took," and he's like, "Yeah, don't you love it?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. Stop taking pictures of me sleeping."
Oh my gosh. I love this so much.
I wish I could say I was immune in this regard, but I'm not. I've had plenty of moments. One of which actually made me giggle was I actually had a little bit of a snafu with my mother-in-law, where like we have kids, so we try to send like the kid videos of, "Oh, it's so cute, she's trying to crawl," and they adore that, right? Well, I was also having kind of a joke conversation with my wife. And we were talking about I think it was Game Grumps videos that we really, really liked. And they were all like compilations of stuff that they would talk about as far as material. And I got what I was supposed to be sending to people wrong. And so I accidentally sent a video. Like, I mean, granted, my wife didn't care because she got a cute video of the girls doing cute things. But to my mother-in-law, I accidentally sent a link of, I think it was a compilation of Dan reading Sonic fan fiction.
Dear God.
Yeah. You can only imagine how quick I immediately went, mistext. I'm like deleting it on my end, hoping that it deleted it on hers. And she's like, because we're talking like it's the Game Grumps. They got pretty in depth with it. It was I think it was the Sonic fan fiction, or it was Deadpool's third, one of the two. And I just get this text that's like, I don't even understand why you sent this to me because the video doesn't even work. It was like, oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness it doesn't even work for you. I'm like, it's okay. I'll go ahead and send this to you. But we've had tons of moments where like I'm flirting with my wife. And then unfortunately, because I was having a conversation with her mom earlier on about our little girls, the flirt goes to the mom. And she's like, oh, yes, this actually does happen in our relationship. And thankfully her mom's very cool about it. She's like, I just laughed that off.
I know there's one instance where, like, hilariously enough, I was with my boyfriend. We went to the doctor because he had a cold, and I was in there with him. And so then he's like gonna try and lay down on the little thing you sit on. And in the process of trying to lay down, he farts at the same time. We both fell out laughing to the point where I'm like, I really hope this doctor doesn't walk in right now because he's gonna be like, what just happened? We laughed so hard at that moment that we couldn't stop laughing. We make up stupid songs half the time. Like there's 50 Cent song, Candy Shop. So it's like, I'll take it to the candy shop. Okay. So me and him today were talking about going to get candles because we used up one of our candles because we always light candles. And he was like, yeah, we'll go to the candle shop. And I was like, show me what you got. And he's like, oh my God, stop it. I was like, what? That's not a song now? He's like, I'll take you to the candle shop. I was like, let you get what you like. We were just making up stupid lyrics. We're half the time we're just really stupid with each other.
I would just like to point out one of the signs of a very healthy relationship is when you do stuff like this. You know, a lot of people give me crap over the whole Kingdom Hearts, Sora unzip your pants kind of thing. It's just something that came out of nowhere, and we both laugh at it now because it's just that spontaneous. I mean, for crying out loud, people are already trying to understand another joke that we're doing in our Chain of Memories playthrough, where for some reason I just brought up, for some reason Sora has unpaid parking tickets. And since Chain of Memories deals with like memories, so the running joke is basically that Sora forgot about his unpaid parking tickets. And so every time like some kind of thing that kind of refers back into it, I'll all of a sudden out of nowhere, because she's playing, I'll just be like, yeah, kind of like your parking tickets. And people, I wish I could get this on film, guys. She is literally on the floor laughing every time it happens because I don't know. She doesn't expect it or anything like that, but it's actually kind of bled into our Kingdom Hearts 3 playthrough where all of a sudden they'll be talking about something serious and I'll be like, yeah, kind of like those parking tickets. And she's on the floor at that point again. So that's how you know you got a good relationship there. But
oh man. I want to add one more, something that also recently just happened. So really quick. So there was one Saturday we decided to go to Costco. I know, horrible idea, but we went to Costco on a Saturday and we're trying to look for a parking spot. And there is this lady on her phone. And again, pay attention to the details, on her phone, just idling in the middle of the parking lot, like doing nothing. And like, she's a considerable distance away from like Nathan, like we're in her car, she's a considerable distance away from us, and we stop so that way she can finish crossing back over into the parking lot, and she gets mad at us for no reason. She like gives us a look, like pretends to hit the car, gets all pissy about it, and we both were just like, okay, that's weird. So we circle back around and it's getting too hot in the car. So he rolls down his window. And then as we're driving down one of the lanes, we happen to see said lady. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, what if she says something to us? Because she was like super pissed off at us. And I was like, I wonder what Nathan would do. So we drive by, and as we drive by, of course, still on the phone, windows down. And she's like, wow, you're such a nice guy. Literally, Nathan stops the car, sticks his head out the window and shouts, maybe you should get off your fucking phone, you bitch. And then she was like, oh my gosh. And every time we pull up into Costco now. Nathan just looks at me and he's like, oh my gosh. And we just lose it.
Oh my gosh, it's freaking Costco.
I kind of hope we see her again. I really do. I just sat there.
Yeah,
I just sat there, just laughing because pretty much all this woman heard is Nathan shouting that out at her, and then my shrill laugh coming from the other side of the car. Oh man, that was just so funny.
But the reason that it's funny to me is that because Shay doesn't know this, but you have to picture Nathan's kind of a reserved individual. So I don't necessarily expect a lot of snap kind of moments like that from him. And so Brenton tells me that, and I'm just like, wow. Wow. But I could see it happening.
It was so perfect. I could have not been more proud.
All right. And on yelling at people for getting off their phones, I think that's actually a really great point to kind of call the podcast because we're already actually running past the usual amount of time for the Why We Geek podcast. But the one thing that I really hope is that we were able to answer the questions that you guys brought in. I know you guys had to wait a couple of months for it, and I wanted to be able to give you the best answers that we possibly could, hence why I assembled the panel that I did here. And I hope that this helped out. I hope you guys have an awesome Valentine's Day weekend, whether you are with somebody or not. Go out and just go see a movie. I mean, for crying out loud, Battle Angel Alita is coming out this weekend. If you're an anime fan, go and see that. Go see it on your own. Just go have some fun. So that's going to be awesome. But let's go ahead and wrap things up. So if people want to be able to ask additional relationship questions, or they want to be able to check out the awesome content that you guys provide, Brenton Volley of BPV Gaming, how do they do that for you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at bvolley01. Or you can just check out my gaming channel here on YouTube as BPV Gaming. I have been on quite an extended hiatus. There's just a couple of things I'm finishing up with work, and then I will be able to get back into my channel, because that's actually one of the things that I need to, like I was saying earlier in the show, recently discovering that I need to start doing some things for myself, and getting back into my YouTube channel and getting back into Final Fantasy 14 and Triad Let's Plays is one of those things. So you should be seeing content from me hopefully soon.
And one thing that the main reason that you need to come back to YouTube, because you and I need to laugh at this. We actually had somebody for some reason message me, but I guess they were aiming to talk to you. Basically trying to tell you that you should leave that horrible MCN that Drac is running, because he just doesn't pay attention to you, and thoroughly they are convinced that I forced you to do the Triad Let's Plays.
What? Like, I specifically
I need to share the specifics with you on this. I may wait until Devil May Cry to do it, because I literally looked at it and laughed my butt off, first of all, because I don't know how many times we've actually been told this, like, you guys should do like a multi-channel network or something like that. And I keep on saying, I don't want the paperwork.
Oh my gosh. Like,
I want to enjoy what I'm doing.
It's like the things I say just go in one ear out the other. So that's wonderful. It was my idea. I even made a video specifically stating it was my idea. For the love of God. I'm going to put it in the comment section of this video so people...
But here's the thing. The other thing that also must be considered is that, we're already going to be getting a lot of crap when we start up Devil May Cry 5, and we're not heard Kerr.
Oh no. What is the world going to do when that time arrives?
Yeah, to bring Shay up to speed, we actually got crap when we played Devil May Cry 3 together, and we played it on easy, because we were just looking to have the story happen, and we weren't looking to be all hardcore about it. And so somebody actually gave us crap going, you're playing on easy mode? And we're like, yeah, we're not herd cur like you. So, all right. And then Shay Tari Shay Tari, how do people get a hold of your content?
Yeah, so you can find me. I am also on Twitter. It's my username is Shay Tari. It's SHAY_TAREE. And then I'm also on YouTube under the same name, Shay Tari, all just one word.
All right. And yes, because I usually do this for the podcast anyway, and I completely forgot to do so with Brenton. I would recommend that you guys check out his Triad Let's Plays. He's actually worked very, very hard on them. And I personally enjoyed just recently getting into his Triad Let's Play of Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, just to see some of the snarky comments that he would make involving the two female protagonists. Yes, I was giggling for a lot of that.
Oh, they're so fun.
They really are.
If I recall correctly, because it's been a year since I played that game, I think I made myself the third in their little group, and I was just like, girl.
Yes, and that's what got me giggling. Especially, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I could totally see Brinton doing this. And from there on in, I saw like Brinton in the middle, just like sitting back and doing that. It's like, okay, there you go.
So, perfect. K succeeded.
Recommend wholeheartedly you guys check out his Triad Let's Plays. And for Shatery, I can't begin to state this more, is, one of the bits of content that I have loved out of her channel is Motivational Mondays. And I love the fact that she is able to pull them out when she's able to. No pressure, Shay, I promise. But they definitely help out, especially during winter months where the sun's not out that much and it's very depressing for a lot of people, myself included. But the other recommendation I'm actually going to give to you guys, because unfortunately a lot of this relationship stuff is unfortunately happening under worse times when it comes to the anime community. You just barely made a video on this. We just barely talked about it on the Geek News podcast. So instead, what I'm going to recommend is you guys check out her review of Dragon Ball Super Broly. Because for crying out loud, we need more positive stuff said about that movie alone. Separate the art from the artist, so to speak.
Yes.
So please go check that out, because Broly overall was just an awesome movie.
So good.
I'll have to check it out.
My inner Dragon Ball fan came out and went, and it was completely fine because Romney was right next to me going, right next to me. So it worked out really well. All right. And so there you go. That's some awesome content that you guys can check out. And if you guys want to check out my content, you can do so at my YouTube channel, which is where you're at right now. I do Let's Play content, reviews. I also do a lot of vlog content when I can't cover stories on a podcast. So you guys can check all of that out. In particular, we're doing Let's Plays of Kingdom Hearts Re-Chain of Memories. You can check out all the jokes about Sora's parking tickets. Yep, they're all there. And also, you guys can look forward to, I think in the next week or so, the Legacy of Final Fantasy returning, where I will be taking on Final Fantasy VIII. Or as a lot of people like to call it, the bad Final Fantasy. And some people like to call it the niche Final Fantasy game. You guys be the judge. And then if you guys want to follow the podcast directly, the best way to be able to do so is follow the RSS feed, which is wegeek.podomatic.com. And that's basically going to get you the connection to the RSS feed and all the episodes that we are able to upload. Or if you guys want to check us out on Google Play for Android users and iTunes, you can just check under the Why We Geek Podcast. You can also follow the Why We Geek Podcast on social media at Twitter under at Why We Geek. Unfortunately, we don't have a Facebook page for it yet because Facebook's weird when it comes to my other podcasts. But we will let you guys know when we actually have a dedicated page there. But if you also want to be able to leave suggestions for other topics you would like to be able to see the podcast take on, as well as maybe even the panelists that you guys want to see on those, you can do so at whywegeekpodcast@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So first of all, I want to thank the panel for being here. I know that people are busy, especially with early months and work and all of that fun stuff, but it's awesome to be able to bring you guys together and be able to have some fun just talking about geeky relationships, despite the heavy content we actually had to get into. It was really awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this. And thank you guys so much for joining us and listening and taking in whatever feedback you were able to. I hope it was able to help. If you want additional stuff, you guys can reach out to us. And yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for us. Thank you guys so much once again for all of your support. And we will be back next month for the next Why We Geek podcast. So for me, for Brinton, and for Shay, we will see you guys next time.